Hello and welcome to my channel. If it's your first time, welcome. If it's not your first time, if you're a returning subscriber or viewer just returning, welcome back to my show. And yeah, this is a pretty long video, as you can tell from the time and the time stamps. So if you don't want to have any clarification, you're like, I just want to watch the video, I want to be surprised or whatever, quote unquote, then fine, you can. If not, then, this is pretty important stuff, so please don't skip, please. But, yeah, number one, because this is very long, but this is the important one, I had to edit videos, not a video, but videos that some are different than others, so some might look a little bit different. I might have a different attire to an extent, because these were multiple videos that I had to merge together. So that's why it's so long, and also that's why we'll see, I should say, video 1, video 2, video 3, etc., 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 if there's, because I think it's like 4 to 5 videos that have been merged, technically speaking, two more than that, this opening and the closing, because it's a lot, it's just, I think it was just more easier for me. And sometimes I still don't pause, give my thoughts, and play again, but the volume is pretty good. It's pretty much the same volume as my voice in the audio, so there's that. And I do pause sometimes, so it's not as bad as the other types of videos that I do when it comes to this types of videos that I do. And of course, just remind you guys, if I say Catholic, I generally speaking mean Roman Catholic, not Catholic. Because Catholic means Christian Universal. We're all Catholic, but we're not all Roman Catholic, so there's that. And I might say something about a K. I mean Confederate, if you can hear it. A little bit of surprise, a little bit of a coming up next, a little preview, a little Easter egg, I guess. And there will be a big skipping point to where they're talking about something else, and it's totally different. You'll know that when, again, you see video 1, video 2, video 3. But I had to edit a lot. Yeah, it's still this long. So, yeah, that's it. You'll see me, present me, near the end for a little bit more. Back to Destiny in a sense of a way. The title of this video is called Debating Lauren Southern, NoBs, Fuentes, RM, and more. Do not dox any of these people or come after them or anything like that. That is wrong to do. If you disagree with them, just debate them or something like that. Do it civilly, obviously. So, yeah, this will tell you guys that. And this is from Destiny's channel. No shout outs, just saying this is by Destiny's channel. And I already told you the thumbnail of what this debate is. So if you want to see it for yourself, you can see it for yourself. So, yeah, let's get on.
So let's start things out with Nick. You're probably the most far right on this stream. So you would see a very different future from the ones that people even on the alt-right or, of course, Steven or Contrapoints would see. Where do you think you veer off from the traditional right, people like Roaming Millennial and myself? And why do you think the future you foresee with more of the alt-right is preferable?
Sure. So where I veer off from the alt-right, where I veer off from a lot of these new characters that came about since the election is I'm a traditionalist conservative, more accurately. So whereas many people in the alt-right are classical liberals, self-described classical liberals, I define myself as a traditionalist conservative in that I value order, hierarchy, tradition, ritual, over things like freedom over things
Ritual.
like economic liberty that a lot of
Okay, so Nick Fuentes not only is a traditionalist, hardcore traditionalist, most likely, but he prefers, if I'm correct, tradition, hierarchy, and ritual over liberty. Okay. You guys saw it there. Okay.
a lot of the Ben Shapiro type enjoy. So my
Of
vision
course
for the
you will.
country
Of
is a
course you
country that is producing children again, is a country that has Jesus Christ at its core, a country that has the family at its core, and a country fundamentally that people enjoy living in and is healthy for people's mental and soul, you know, their minds and their souls, so to speak. And so I think that's preferable in a lot of ways, because you look at the Reagan Revolution, for example, as kind of a good example of the triumph of classical liberalism, this purely materialist vision of our country and of the West. And you see that we still, even though we have wealth, even though we have freedom, we still have suicide epidemics, we still have drug epidemics, we still have all kinds of symptoms of a society that is not working. And so that's why my vision, I think, would work.
So that's why your vision of authoritarianism and traditionalism is better than liberty, because we have more suicide rates or something? Yeah, I don't know.
Because we're getting back to a country that is functional, that has the fundamentals right.
Okay.
Now, would you consider yourself alt-right, just to
Oh
clarify?
yeah, he's most likely alt-right.
I technically don't consider myself alt-right.
Of course he doesn't.
Because they tend to lose me on the pure racialism, the identitarianism, specifically the racialist strand of identitarianism. I'm not about that.
But do you want like a white America? Would you say that is?
I want a white supermajority in America, yeah.
Okay. Now, no bullshit, roaming millennial.
Okay.
Barren, don't worry, Steven, I will get to you. Would you say that you have any disagreement?
Just to tell you guys, this is like a joke, a little gag. Seriously, it's just a little gag. But for real, I don't smoke, obviously. This is, I guess you could call air smoking, quote unquote. It is pretty good for your lungs, just don't talk very loud, because I did that once and my throat was hurting. So just, you know, it's a, I'm joking around a little bit, but I'm not going to do that all the time, obviously, because I am not that type of guy. But what's I going to say? Oh, just a fair warning. Debates like these and some things like this, when I sort of react, or if I was in the situation, there might be some cursing in the video. Not by me, but just by what I'm watching.
Disagreement
so just tell you guys
with
that.
Nick on this.
Well, I'm someone who is also on the right. Something that, from what I've just heard him say, I do disagree with is that I'm someone who's on the right, but I am someone who leans libertarian, and from the sounds of it, Nick, you kind of lean more to the authoritarian spectrum. So I'm someone who, like Ben Shapiro, really values my things like economic freedom, individual liberty, things like that. And so that's probably a disagreement we would have, and that's also one of the among many disagreements that I have with people who tend to be more on the alt-right. I tend to see this desire for, I guess, not the social justice, more left-leaning type of government regulations, but still a very strong state or a very strong state power. And I'm someone who, I want small government and big community involvement, big churches, things like that. It's not that I'm a libertarian who thinks like, yeah, we'll all just do drugs and have no roads, that kind of thing, no control. I'm just someone who would rather those sort of, I guess, tempering
I'm sort of like that. I'm not in for big government, but I still want government.
Churches, even on the state level, things like that. Now, Steven, what are your issues with Adorable Sweater Man and Wonderful Small Government, Neil? Because I know you're probably seething there about people not doing drugs anymore and having traditional families.
Oof, I'm never seething. So basically, the undeniable reality right now is that the world is headed towards a more kind of globalist.
Just tell you guys, this was, if I'm correct, in 2018, so this is a little bit old.
The best thing that we can do is make sure that we kind of integrate ourselves into that world as effectively as possible to ensure that as many people are kept free and happy and economically prosperous as possible, rather than to try to hold on to this idea that we can keep the country looking like it did 50 or 100 or 150 years ago.
Why do you think this future is going to be more economically prosperous than what we had 50 years ago, this globalist future you envision? Why will that be a positive thing for the future?
For me personally, I mean, I'm a capitalist. I'm a strong believer in capitalism. And
me too.
In terms of like globalist policy generally being good for economics, that's not really an issue that's debated by any economist that I've ever heard of. The ability to work together with other countries to capitalize on each other's advantages, these are things that are generally accepted by pretty much all economists to be incredibly economically beneficial things. Of course, they bring other problems as well, but those are problems that I would hope to address, rather than, I guess, some people kind of want to throw out the whole system because there are a couple things wrong with it and then go back to whatever we had 50 or 100 years ago.
You're being shockingly reasonable right now.
I mean, I'm a very reasonable person.
To be unreasonable. Contrapoints, welcome. Thank you for coming on the stream. I know you guys can get in shit for associating with us horrible fascist Nazis on right-wing YouTube, but do tell me what your vision is for the future and where you would veer off from people like myself, Nick, and Roman Millennial, and others.
Well, I would like to see an America that is a juster and fairer version of the one we already have, which is to say a country built by waves of immigration and not Disneyland for white supremacists.
Disneyland for white supremacists. Nick, you have a problem with that?
Oh, boy. Well, it's just funny to me
right
because these people who talk about
Nick.
equality in one breath and then talk about mass immigration in another. What do you think is going to happen when you import people from the third world? You're going to get the same brutalism, the same despotism, the same
Not
tyranny,
necessarily.
the same
Some people
low IQ
run
of the
away
third world in
from
our
that.
country.
That's why some
I
people
don't
are
see how
running
you
away.
start
What happened when you had
Nick.
waves of Italian immigrants or Irish immigrants? People
Well,
that was
that's
the equivalent
European.
of the third world back then.
No, those were followers of Christ. Those are Europeans and average
Those
IQs.
were
You
Catholic.
speak
What?
Are
They so
followers of
divided
Christ
Christians.
are
But
going
wait,
to-
hold on.
Wait, aren't Mexicans
Wait.
mainly Catholic too? Like,
Wait, no, there's a difference between Catholicism and Christianity, obviously. But wait, so wait, I got nothing to say if I was wait. So Nick said no. The reason why these people were acceptable was because they were followers of Christ.
What's up?
aren't Mexicans Catholic too, primarily?
Because in the early 21st century, the Catholics, right, the Irish Catholics, it was viewed as papist invasion. Like, I mean, it's essentially the same argument.
No, it's not.
I mean,
there's
look all this up
there's
for yourself,
differences
guys.
between Italians and Anglos, for example, but the differences between Mediterraneans and Italians, or excuse me, Mediterraneans and Anglos, is a lot smaller than the differences between sub-Saharan Africans and Anglos. I don't think anyone would argue it's the
If
same.
you grant that this racist pseudoscience is correct.
True.
No, but I mean, just not like we're
I mean,
not
Nick,
even
you're
talking about
racist,
genetically, but just also you have to admit that a Judeo-Christian culture, and I'm including Mexico in this, is more. That's right. I'm bringing the Jews into this.
Nick, it's Judeo-Christian. Stop being anti-Semitic, but I mean, that's Nick for you. Just to tell you guys, I was telling you, it's more than he's...
Well, I'm counting them. They're going to be
It's
more similar and have
Judeo-Christian.
easier time
Come on,
integrating
Nick Fuentes.
than individuals from some like a predominantly Muslim culture. And I think you're seeing that, like, historically speaking, even people from Latin America are having an easier time assimilating culturally than what we're seeing in Europe right now with migrants from largely Muslim countries, right? There is that cultural difference that is harder to breach the more different the cultures are.
When you say cultural difference, like, I don't understand where this idea is so funny hearing this. Like,
I mean, yeah, Nick was like, wait, Judeo? I thought it was just Christian. No, it isn't. It's Judeo.
It's because, like, in America, we don't have one culture. Like, if you take somebody that was in LA
Exactly,
and you try to translate them to a city in Alabama, or you even take somebody from New York and try to take them and translate them to San Francisco, these are incredibly different cultures.
Yeah, it's like
what
getting
is this
somebody from
unifying?
New
Like, what are some
Orleans
traits
to,
of this
like,
unifying American culture?
As someone who grew up overseas in Asia and things like that, let me tell you, there are cultural differences between East Coast and West Coast. Absolutely. People, cold and I guess always in a rush in New York, more laid back and friendly in LA. Those differences pale in comparison to the differences we see when we're talking about like say Saudi Arabian culture, just basic things like respecting someone's right to freedom of religion,
Well, so like
respecting women's rights, respecting the rights of
so when you say women's rights, it's interesting you say that, because if you look at somebody
But
like
I wouldn't
LA,
just
like if you
say
take somebody
kick
from
them out
LA,
of the
you take their view
country. I
on
mean,
women's
if
rights,
they're like
you would
that,
find a lot more
it just
similarities
depends.
between
That's
like
a
a
case by
conservative
case
like Lauren
scenario.
Southern, her view on women's rights, comparable to like a Muslim, than you would to somebody in LA, right? The idea that women need to cover up, that they shouldn't show too much skin. Yeah, sure. So like when you get conservatives that say
Lauren is not closer to someone who is an Islamic fundamentalist.
Oh yeah, absolutely. In terms of what should women wear to be presentable in public, this is very much a fundamentalist religious idea that women need to cover up in order to be presentable.
Let me clarify.
That's a societal ideal that everybody should dress in a certain way because if it's certain criteria. You just don't go into a court with jeans and just a jacket. You go to the court with a suit and tie, you know? You don't go to a wedding with like just anything. You usually dress up. And if you go to church, you usually maybe try to go for your Sunday best. That's more cultural, not fundamental religion. Like what?
The difference is the choice to do so, and that it is not enforced by
that
being
is true
stoned
as well.
into the freaking ground by your Sharia police.
But
I think it should be a choice. I always have been more libertarian
but if he
on the
was,
values
it's
of, yes,
not
should be traditional.
fundamental
You
religion.
should not be running around like Miley Cyrus with a dildo strapped to you with your tits out. I think that's ridiculous. I think it's
criteria of what it is,
good
or by
society
where you
or anything
are.
that is produced.
You just don't dress a certain way. You dress a certain way for a particular place.
So I think that is the fundamental difference between Islamic cultures who do believe in this culture of submission.
That's not Islamic culture. That's the
European,
culture.
Western.
But that's not Islamic culture. You keep saying Islamic culture. That's the culture of some very particular Islamic societies. We don't stone people.
Well, that's a case by case scenario. Sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't.
Oh, that's the case from Morocco to the Philippines.
I'm sorry, can you tell me when Muslims in America have stoned a woman for not wearing a hijab? Can you give me that story?
It's extremely well integrated.
That is true as well.
Yeah, like where is this happening?
No, that's not true. You can look at that city in Michigan. You can look at it in Minneapolis, where they have Somalis have taken over. Where you have
taken over. I'm sorry. Where
at the end of the day, just look all this up for yourself.
Actually, I remember when a bunch of
Michigan. You have Minneapolis and
Minneapolis. That's Somali paradise. How could I forget about Minneapolis?
They're resettling a lot of Somali migrants.
Wait,
look, no, laugh it up.
Well, I mean, the only time I remember somebody.
They're going to be the first to go, and the
only time. The only time I remember like sovereignty in the United States being threatened was when a bunch of rednecks in what state was it where they all tried to take over the federal land because they were mad that the government was trying to mark it off as their park.
It started with a K. Something states for America. What was it?
From the country. That's a far cry
the legal secession meme. Oh, the legal secession meme.
Constitutional.
Okay.
Secession was, but look, that's beside the point. The South seceding from the Union is a far cry from a cultural and demographic subversion and invasion by the
Okay. No. What?
Third world. I don't think anybody would argue that a change of regime and government is comparable to the fundamental transformation demographically of a nation and its people. I don't think anyone in their right mind would argue that.
Yeah, but not everybody is, I guess, obsessed with this demographic change. And for something that seems so important to somebody that calls themselves a traditionalist, this wasn't written into the Constitution at all, that we were supposed to be something.
Actually, it was.
It absolutely wasn't.
Like we said in our debate, it's in the preamble of the Constitution.
But it actually is in the preamble. And
our posterity.
Oh, but unfortunately, in the Federalist Papers, when he talks about our posterity, one, he never mentions race a single time. And two, that same guy that you cite that mentioned posterity said that if he had the opportunity to, he would have banned Catholics from ever entering the United States, which you yourself are.
In Federalist number 2, he doesn't explicitly say race.
No, he doesn't.
He's descending from the same stock. If you want me to pull up the quote, I can. But
we can. I mean, I have my own quotes as well. But you're quoting a guy. You're quoting a guy that.
We can talk about quotes all day long.
Do you think that Catholics should? Do you think Catholics should be banned from the United States as well then? Because he was quoted as saying the same thing.
The definition can expand, but it must expand.
Just trying to get a little bit.
Okay, if you want to reasonably expand.
Christian,
no, dude.
Somali Muslims. I don't think so.
If you want to expand the definition, you can't. White America in the 1700s was Anglo-Saxon, not white European Christian. The idea that Germans and Italians and Spaniards were all seen as the same as British people is ridiculous.
Destiny, who
That is
discovered
true.
the New World? Who discovered the New World in 1492? Who is the continent named after? Who circumnavigated the globe? It was Catholic Italians, and again, reasonable expansion. If we could go back to the 1924 national origins quotas, it's very laid out. We would like, if it were possible in this day and age, to have that Protestant Anglo-Saxon majority again. I think it'd be worth pursuing. But the fact of the matter is, demographically, it's just not tenable. So we reasonably expand the definition to Christian Europeans, and that's fine. And everybody understands what that means.
Okay.
Well, guys, just give me 2 minutes. Destiny, I will give you an opportunity to respond, but I do want to quickly calm things down. This didn't take long to ignite. It's lots of fun. But I do want to quickly bring in Theron and No Bullshit. But first, Theron, you are coming from a more centrist view. So watching Nick and Steven argue over this, what do you make of it?
As I don't think that immigration, a more just society, is necessarily a society in which there is more immigration. I actually think that a just society would be a society where immigration benefits the people in the nation rather than the people outside of the nation, the people immigrating. I think they're the ones who should benefit secondarily.
I am going to skip some of this because, is that
but it's not? I do think the whole conversation
it's not necessarily boring, but I guess it's just.
I don't hear people taking much.
I guess my main narrative.
They take a lot of concern with
this in
cultural
general.
differences between Muslims or people from Africa.
It's an interesting point. So I would say the same.
And we're back. Oh, seriously, come on.
Thing to leftists to focus on only white.
Come on, don't do this.
Let's discuss that for just 1 minute here, because I think that's an interesting point. So I would say the same thing to leftists who focus on.
This was not a Christian nation. That's absolutely not true.
I mean,
where
it
is it in the
technically is. It's the main religion in the nation.
White Christian ethno-state?
Why would it something
not
so
Christian
important like that? Why would they have
ethno-state,
specifically left out any and all references to God, and even went further to say that there was a separation of church and state? It was supposed to be a Christian. That's so stupid. Why would you do that?
What we mean by it's a Christian nation, meaning by we have a lot of Christian-like values within our country and within our society in America. And again, there was a lot of prayers before the first, if I'm correct, the first constitutional convention. There was like, what, 5 prayers before they even started, then began with a prayer, then ended with a prayer. In God we trust, one nation under God. I mean, I know that was put in there, but still, I mean, I would say, how about this? This is how I think about it. America has Christian values, but I wouldn't say it's a Christian nation, because it was a Christian nation, that usually means like if I'm correct, China is like I think a Buddhist sort of like nation when it comes to religion, as in only a specific type of Buddhism is allowed and no other religions. So I would say America has Christian values, but maybe not a Christian nation in of itself like that.
Why would you do that?
I don't know. It looks stupid to you, but that's the way it was. Look, there's a fine line between the proposition nation that the founders intended this to be. They were all very liberal. They read Rousseau, so that gives you some idea of how liberal they were. But the nation that was founded in 1776 was, in character, in form, a Christian nation. And you can say,
I mean,
well,
the
it's not
Pilgrims
a
were
law. You can say
Christian,
whatever.
trying to
But the fact
get
of the
out
matter
of
is, it was a Christian nation. The people that were here were Christian. The people that came
Catholicism
here
of
later were
England,
Christian.
because
Until
back
about
then either you were
1965,
Catholic
this was a
or
white
not.
Christian nation. You can
pretty
say that
much.
it's not in the letter of the law. I don't think they needed to put it in law, because at the time
It's not a white Christian nation. It wasn't meant to be a white Christian nation.
It was 80%
Calm
Anglo-Saxon,
down.
not white. Anglo-Saxon.
It was a lot of talk about like in Europe now, American culture.
I'm gonna mute people. All right,
Okay.
so I'm gonna give Contra a chance to respond to Nick. and then vice versa, and then we're going to move on to another person. So Contra responded to Nick, and then
Nick claimed that the United States was a white nation until 1965, when it was in fact 80% white. Europe, most every European country is far more white than that, and you claim that it's been severely compromised. In what sense is
Sure. Yeah, my response to that is when the nation was founded in 1776, the first census results are from 1790. And at that time, the country was 80% white. The other 20% was black. Now, if you recall at the time, black people were not considered people. So I don't think it's fair to say that the nation is not founded as a white country when that 20% wasn't even considered. That's not to justify. That's not to justify.
There was white supremacy in practice. White supremacy in practice, racial egalitarianism in theory.
Oh yes, it was in practice back then. What?
Founded on principles of white supremacy. You want to say that slavery was not a white supremacist institution? Really?
It was. That was white supremacy. That was racist.
Look, not for nothing, but the founders roll up. You know,
you're blocked on Twitter for a reason. I'm not afraid of you.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay.
So fuck, we're calling for my death and the death of all trans people.
Yeah.
Fuck you. I'm not afraid of you. Fuck you.
Okay, let's address that quickly.
There's like
response, and then we have to jump to roaming.
Sure. Well, the change I'm talking about is going back to the natural order of things, the natural order by God, which prevailed in this great land up until just about 50 years ago. So we're talking about going back hundreds of years. We're talking about
that's exactly what Muslims talk about. That's exactly what radical Muslims talk about.
Yeah, well, and maybe there's something to the conservatism of some of the Muslim countries.
My point exactly.
I'm not being critical by saying we want to maintain a conservative culture in our country.
In your culture, what would happen to someone like me?
You would
just
probably
tell you
have to see a
this
doctor.
person's
You would
trans.
probably have to
Oh no, Nick! You know what you would do to trans. Nick Fuentes most likely has afraid of LGBTQ plus disorder, most likely, also known as the short version AOGD, afraid of gays disorder. Nick Fuentes most likely has that.
Conversion therapy.
Oh, that shock therapy. Oh yeah, that shock therapy with all the drugs that really harmed a lot of people. Yeah, dude, no. Even if you were a person who might not agree with gay marriage, you knew that shock therapy and quote-unquote conversion therapy was wrong. We're not supposed to convert people to Christians through shock or drugs. You can look all of that up. They have a whole documentary of the quote-unquote conversion therapy that was just disgusting and just simply horrible. That was not biblical and not Christian at all.
Trans people, this is why leftists hate you, this is why they hate right-wingers, because they don't do enough to speak out against assholes. I'm not on board with what he's saying, just BT dubs. Maybe do a little bit more work speaking out against people like that. Maybe when you have people like Richard Spencer on your channel, don't just sit there and go, oh, that's nice, that's so interesting. Maybe you should, no, but you still have a responsibility as an interviewer.
Oh, that Ruben.
That is interesting. If it's an interview, do you just let them say what they say? For me, if I was interviewing somebody, if they were saying lies, I'll be like, excuse me, but that's not interviewing somebody like Richard Spencer. I don't know why. Like it would be like me interviewing Steve Anderson, which I would never do, but somehow in some way, if I was, only if it led Steve Anderson to Christ, and if he turned from his wicked ways, then I would do an interview with him. Or just, if that was the beginning of that, then okay, but just a plain interview with somebody like that, you wouldn't do that. Again, don't dox any of these people, especially Nick Fuentes. Don't go after them or anything like that. That is wrong. You should have a good debate with them, a good conversation with them, even. But like, there's just some people you just don't talk to in a certain way as you would talk to a normal person. If I would talk with Steve Anderson, I'm going to talk to him as somebody who needs Christ immediately before it's too late. Not just some guy who has an opinion on certain groups or certain people or has a certain belief. I wouldn't do that. It's Steve Anderson. I wouldn't just do that. I would treat him as somebody who something's wrong with them and they need Christ before it's too late. Not just a different person with a different belief system than I do. So, in cases of that, you have to treat people in a different way, but still treat them, try to treat them in a way that isn't like I'm going to kill you. Treat them in a way as in, if you say something wrong, I'm going to tell the truth. If you gotta say something bad, I'm going to stop you. The right way, obviously. So, yeah, that's what I think about that situation that was going on with this video. Tonight we're going to be doing a little bit more of a hybrid here. If you can see the screen here, if you can't, then I'm looking at a screen. You might not be able to see it, but I am looking at the screen. We will continue on with the debate.
So first off, maybe regarding the Richard Spencer interview, I just want to say that I stand by that interview. If you watch it, you can see that I clearly stated that I'm not
do a good job. You were irresponsible.
That I am not a white nationalist, and I've even brought up things like the question of why it would be that white people will get along so great now when the history of European conflict shows us that the opposite is true. Things like that. But I do stand by that there is a difference between a debate and an interview.
Like
a lot of my subscribers are happy to actually see what Richard Spencer says, and if your problem is that he came off too positively, then you can feel free to make a response video to that. But in terms of the Asian question and Muslim immigration, I actually do get what you're saying, and there is definitely a problem with integration in Asian communities, especially east and west coast of the United States and Canada. But the reason why it makes more sense to focus on the Muslim issue now is because they are more of an existential threat, just in terms of safety through terrorist attacks. We see that now, especially in the U.S. as well, but especially like looking at Europe right now. And, I think Canada is probably going to be going down that road eventually, just because of the amount of immigrants seeing because of the whole refugee situation. I think it does make sense to focus on the Muslim question first, but that doesn't mean that Asians get a free pass, right? And I think Asians are notorious.
I don't even
I say a problem, but maybe discussion.
Asians are notoriously insular, and that's not acceptable. And I think part of the reason why we're seeing that is because that's what happens when you let in too many of the same group at the same time. And I think that's an argument for stricter border control and lower immigration numbers. If people come over more slowly, they'd have less of a chance to form these ghettos and insular communities, and they'll be more forced to assimilate. So it's not that Asians get a free pass, it's just that I think there are bigger issues to focus on right now. But I mean, it's all part of the same question of immigration.
What do you mean by insular? Can I get like a definition of what it means to integrate? I'm really curious. Like, what is this idea? What is American culture, and what are these values that every person needs to integrate to?
English
language.
I guess
my
American culture is the
values? My values are
many
Nick's values.
cultures.
Or somebody in Tennessee's values, or someone in LA's. Sorry, I keep interrupting.
Yeah, well, so when we're talking about integration, my grandfather, who I love dearly, is an example of this. So a bunch of my father's brothers and sisters came over to Canada while they were in school, and later in life, my grandfather actually came over once they got their citizenship. I love my grandfather. He was a great guy. Never learned to, he was here for decades, didn't speak English. Same with his wife that he brought over, not my biological grandma, she died, but didn't speak English either. They lived in buildings where a lot of the older residents, none of them spoke English. And I think language is a huge indicator of someone's assimilation level. If you can't talk to the population surrounding you, then it's a pretty good bet that you're not on the same page with most civic issues or cultural issues, things like that. And with the Asian community, we're not really talking about an issue of religion, since like most Asians are secular, but just culturally, there's a huge problem with people not talking to each other, despite the fact that they live maybe streets down from each other.
Okay, I think that was a hugely dishonest answer. When people talk about integrating to American values, the only thing you're talking about is English. I don't believe that. I think you what do you actually talk about when you talk about
regards to my grandfather?
Okay, I don't care about your grandfather though. When you talk about
every person
Muslim people or other people,
or
when we're talking about Muslims, there is a difference. There's a difference thing. When we're talking about Muslims and
so what is that difference? What values are you talking about?
Chinese tradition.
Right. So those values would be things like freedom of religion, respecting other people's right to practice their own religion freely, like we practice, like you can practice yours. We're also talking about women's rights. The fact that, like we're seeing happening in London, if you are a Muslim man, you do not have the right to tell women that they should be covering up because it does not affect you, things like that.
Okay, so also, one at a time, on like things like women's issues. These are things that we don't even have a consistent view of in the U.S. Half the country is still...
Let everyone finish their comments or I'm going to start muting mics. So, Stephen, then roaming. We're going to calm down. Everyone go get tea.
Sure, so on just one time, on these values, because you keep presenting these as though there's like a consistent American view on values, which is ludicrous. When you talk about women's issues, there are people that think that some women should be able to breastfeed in public. Some women shouldn't be allowed to breastfeed in public. Some people want to hashtag free nipple. Other people think that it's disgusting that women would wander around outside. These are all white American differences in ideas. Some people think that abortion should be something that every woman is entitled to. Other people think it's one of the greatest sins you can commit.
Guess what? We all agree that, women should be allowed to vote, that women are not the property of their husbands, that child brides are not acceptable. These are basic values that apparently in Islam, that they a lot of them don't get, that honor killings are not acceptable. That a woman who was raped should not be blamed for her rapist actions. These are things Americans agree on.
No, we don't. We're fighting over that right now. The big issue in Hollywood about accusing people of being rapists. You're going to seriously say we have a consistent view?
No one is saying that the women who are alleging that they've sexually abused should be stoned because of the
maybe not stoned, but kicked out of their industry and shamed and cut off from future job opportunities.
Who's saying that?
Everybody in Hollywood for the past 30, 40 years. I can't tell if you're being serious right now.
Wait, are you serious? Destiny, wait, hold up. Wait. Destiny, wait, what? What? I mean, yeah, maybe some through silence, but no. What? Destiny, I think you got it the other way around. I haven't heard that at all. I've heard the opposite. Of somebody who was accused of rape got their jobs taken away, but somebody who's accusing somebody of rape, I haven't heard that their job was taken away. What are you saying, Destiny? What?
I feel like I'm living in an alternate reality. That's the whole reason why this is such a problem. It's because every woman that's spoken out against it since now has been destroyed in their careers.
Destroyed? How? Evidence, please, because I've been hearing from the news. No, these are the opposite. People who are accused of raping somebody gets their jobs taken away then and there, but not somebody who accuses somebody of rape. I don't... What?
Decent point, because I've made this before. People say, oh, Lauren, you think Harvey Weinstein is a problem. Suddenly you believe in rape culture. No, that is not the case. I do believe that rape does happen within our society. And I will agree that the rich and powerful do not play by the same rules as the rest of us. They can finagle things. They can make sure people can't get jobs. They can get all sort of legal contracts. But when someone
not saying that it doesn't happen with the opposite, I'm just saying I never heard
another individual, society as a whole within the West rejects them, and that is illegal. They are put in jail. Within Islamic societies, that is not within the law and the popular culture. That is the difference. I do see where you're coming from when you say Weinstein was able to get away with horrible things because of his power, but I don't think that is what is representative of overall
we wouldn't have a rape culture.
That's why everyone was pissed when that came out in the news, and that's why everyone's hanging Harvey Weinstein and Kevin Spacey, because we're against those
That's
things.
not why people are mad. People are mad.
We can't even watch House of Cards anymore. That's #1 trending thing. Like, is it okay to even watch the show?
Yeah, and is it okay to sing I Believe I Can Fly? Because that was by R. Kelly. And R. Kelly is... a rapist. You know, they have a whole documentary about that. So, yeah, and that's a debate with in
that
itself.
Kevin Spacey was in. That's how crazy we are about it.
Yeah, people aren't upset because people got raped. That's not why it's such a huge deal. People are upset. People are upset because people kept this under wrap for decades because it was impossible for a woman to come out and say anything. When people talk about the existence of rape culture, this is the kind of stuff they point to. If you're a woman and somebody in a position of power propositions you for sex, you don't really have the ability to. The reason why this is such a
people who've gone to human resources.
Yeah, like it's like a different reality.
They've been relocated. Like this is in every industry in America. Like the idea that this is a unique thing to Hollywood is wrong.
Well, if you did this,
you know how we
did this in Saudi Arabia, there wouldn't be an HR department.
Oh, no.
There wouldn't be
Nick,
media
don't
outrage.
say
It would
it.
just be
Don't say how
an HR department
is
here,
this.
and they're in Saudi
I don't
Arabia.
trust
Immigrants
you.
will get used to that.
We can easily prevent all sexual
Oh, no.
assault in the workplace if our women were at home raising the kids.
Oh, no, Nick, okay, explain to me why one person, one woman, is considered to be a deity in Catholicism, which is Mary, the mother of Jesus, as you said. And I think, being honest, I quote, "Two people without sin are Jesus and Mary," which means that Mary, the mother of Jesus, is equal to Jesus without sin. And the only person without sin in Christianity is Jesus and God. Jesus is God. Therefore, you're saying that Mary is God status, even though she isn't. So it makes no sense when you're saying, I'm a person that might worship Mary, but you think that women should stay in the kitchen. That makes no sense, Nick. That's so hypocritical. Please explain to me. Please answer that. Please. However you can. Through a comment. Sorry, that was just accidental shaking. Either via comment of this video. Please. What is the difference between Mary, the mother of Jesus, and other women? Of course, the difference is that she was chosen to be the sort of birth vessel of Jesus. He is blessed, he is respected, but not worshipped. So please, explain to me how that makes sense, Nick. Please. I never know. Oh my god. The only thing Nick, how you white national.
That's true.
I said from 9 to 5. If you're at home raising the kids, not going to get sexually harassed by some.
That's the point, Nick. What? Nick should be the last person who should talk about women, and that's just the truth. Because no, he's not a good representation of saying stuff to women or to help women. Nick Fuentes is not that type of person that will help women out. What?
The most radical jihadists society.
It's the fundamentalist.
It's fundamental. It is, even though it isn't Nick Fuentes. Proverbs actually refers more of an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs have to go outside. They have to expand. So there's that. 2, there's really nowhere in the Bible where it says that a woman should stay in the kitchen at all. All men everywhere should be called to repentance, as in mankind. As in the Great Commission, it's not just men that are doing it. Women can do it too. They can preach the gospel, cast out demons in Jesus' name. They can do that too as well. But of course, Nick wouldn't believe that either. So, I'm not surprised. It's Nick
relationships between men and women, but that's how it goes. How is that different than the past?
Islamists?
No. It's by transnationalists, and so unfortunately,
what? But women can work outside of the home too as well. Like, there's no problem is
getting to the work.
you should discourage women to get into the workforce. Oh my gosh, Nick, how much of a sexist can you? It'll be fine, guys. Next time I'll prepare a lot more because I didn't know how long this was going to be. I'll be fine.
By law, no, but I think we should discourage women from getting into the workforce. I think to deprive a child of a mother and a father growing up, that they get shoved
They
into
can
some
do both,
daycare
Nick.
looked after by someone who
They
doesn't
can do both.
care. I mean, that's fundamentally at the core. But I shitpost about this often. But I mean, that's when it comes down to it. You talk to any child whose parents are divorced or who wasn't raised by a mother, and there's a marked difference in people who are raised by a mother who is staying home and really cared about.
True, there is a difference. There is a difference of abandonment and not abandonment from the child or the parent. But they can do both, Nick. Both men and women, husband and wives can work and still have a great family. That they can do that. It's possible, Nick. We've been doing that for centuries, generations? Pretty much since of one. I'm not gonna watch this whole thing. I'm not gonna let you guys watch this whole thing. And if I correct, it's like a whole 2 hours of I think Destiny just talking to not his base, but like friends of his. So just tell you guys that, and don't dox any of these people, even Nick Fuentes. Obviously, let's not do that. That's not right. That's not the right thing to do. Have a reasonable conversation with these people if you disagree. And, I mean, I might say something like maybe, this is rare, I might say frick or flip or dang. Most likely not. I usually say darn or flippin' or forks and spoons. But for real, just to tell you guys that, let's continue.
He cared about the kids. He cared about their diet, their social life, their education, and looked after them. It's not like it'd be nice if we had a mother to stay home. It's a necessity for the child.
I agree.
Yeah, they need both, but they can work.
I mean, to disregard that, for GDP, I think is a neoliberal.
But Nick, again, what you're talking about, like children need a mom to be home. Again, like the time that a children is home is not the entire span of a woman's life or even her range of fertility, right? And if
exactly, like you gotta look at time and just everything else. And of course, people who have one parent, they can do great, but it's been statistically proven that it's best to have two parents, especially a mother and a father. But I mean, any type of a family, but just in general, the best by statistics is a husband and a wife. Just to tell you guys, I'm not trying to do debate of that.
Aren't home full time. What's wrong with the mother working part time? What's wrong with the mother working before she has children? Actually, a lot of people meet their future partners in the workforce. So again, like discouraging women from working entirely because they have to stay home and raise children. I think you're overestimating how many years we're living and how many hours there are in a day.
I know.
No, but we're not talking about women getting like a part-time job while the kids are in high school. We're talking about it is black and white. It's not so much gray. It is black and white of whether or not, because you saw the trend for the past 40 years has been the stay-at-home mom is a loser. The stay-at-home mom is not cool. She doesn't live in the fast lane like Tina Fey in New York City. You got to be an astronaut. You got to be a STEM. You can be a Jedi.
But also not
you can be a fucking superhero. We have to point the arrow back towards rearing kids. And you talk about it like it's one kid. We're talking about we want to have lots of kids, and there's many reasons for that. But we want the ladies to be having the kids, raising the kids, looking after the home.
Not the man, because somehow the man, isn't that sexist? Like a man can't raise children. Like what? I thought, is that sexist? Or I mean, it should
better
be.
For them too. They're happier in that setting. They are happy, and you can say, "Oh, I'm a working woman, and I'm happy." But the studies show that women are happier when they're at home, when they have their kids. It's more fulfilling.
You see, this is the problem with Nick and Crowder and people like that. Crowder is much better than Nick Fuentes, but I'm just saying most people like them forget that numbers are names and percentages are people, depending on what statistic you're doing. When it comes to family, the black community, stuff like that. So, like, just every percent is a person. Like black on white crime and stuff like that. Every percent is a person. Sure, it's low, but it's still a scenario when people sadly die and get hurt. Like, maybe hashtag people are percentages or people. Like, sometimes that's the truth. Percentages or people. But I'm not gonna do a hashtag. I'm not trying to start that. I'm just saying they forget
more satisfying. You know what's
every
more
number
satisfying?
has a name
Spreadsheets and
when it comes
preparing
to
a
stuff like this.
presentation for the big sales pitch, or being at home, being with little babies and taking them to the park and playing games with them. I'd rather play Go Fish with my kids than go and be a fucking lawyer, for bankruptcy law, right?
Oh, don't forget, Nick Fuentes is presumably a Roman
looking
Catholic.
at what I want in the next 10 years, honestly, I've got to say that my career ambitions are very limited in the fact that I would so rather be a mom. But again, that doesn't mean, for example, what Lauren and I are doing right now. Like, it doesn't need to be either or, and women have that ability to do both, especially before they have children.
And also,
when we're looking at the fertile window, let's say like 25 to 35, that is by no means someone's entire working life. But I mean, we can move on or bring Contra into this.
Right. Wait. Okay. Well, first of all, yeah, Stephen Contra. Why do you hate women kissing babies?
Why? I have no problem with any of this.
And I support white genocide.
Okay, I love babies. Why not just give people the choice to do what they want? Like, I don't understand why that's because like it's the ultimate irony is seeing people like kind of roaming millennial and then super Lauren Southern who don't have children talk here and espouse like the most important job of a woman is to be a baby pumper.
No, it really isn't. Actually, from a Christian perspective, it's like an entrepreneur, a healer, a comforter, and a helper. As an equal party like system of the relationship between a man and a woman. Is there a little bit of like, God, man, woman, women, children? Yes, but it's not in the context of a authoritative hierarchy. It's more of a trait deal. Some traits men have are better than women, and vice versa. Like, the average man is stronger than the average woman by statistics. And also by statistics, a woman is smarter than a man, but the man catches up, but still, a lot of times women do make more wiser decisions. That's just a statistic fact. And for us Christians, it might be more of a natural thing that God placed in us. But I don't really want to get all into that because I know that's a very touchy subject. But I'm just saying that there is equality in the relationships, but there are some traits that a man has that a woman doesn't, and that there are some traits that a woman has and a man doesn't. It's like, it's not like what street preachers say. It's definitely not what street preachers say.
I disagree with both of you, doing things that you probably couldn't do if you had a kid. You talk about how like 25 to 35 isn't the entire lifespan of a woman. Taking 2 or 3 years out of your 20s, late 20s, early 30s, your most important like early establishing career building years, that's a big commitment from some people. And both of you have made the choice not to do so, not to have children and instead pursue this whatever kind of quasi career thing we all do.
I'm ready to go right now. But the thing is, when we say that women should have children, or at least, I mean, I'm not going to talk for anyone else here, but that doesn't mean have children before you're financially sound. That doesn't mean have children before you found a partner that you can build your life with, right? I mean, like, I'm not just saying get pregnant as soon as possible. It's be financially stable, have a partner who's going to be there. Because I think like father figures are so important to be there for your child. Like, it's not just pop out babies indiscriminately. It's the opposite of what needs to be done. And I think we see the damage of just having children without any care or concern of how you're going to raise them. And I mean, like, I'm 23 and I have no doubt that there's still some time left on these eggs. So I'm not really worried about it.
If you want to get married and have kids,
let me just
you gotta
jump in
be
here for a
stable.
second.
You gotta have a foundation.
Sorry to bullshit. I just want to expand on that. I completely agree with one of the big problems is women just deciding I'm going to pump out babies and not consider having a father. Single fatherhood, not single fatherhood, but single motherhood rather, causes for almost double the suicide risk for a child. More likely to be an alcoholic, more likely to drop out of school, more likely to be homeless. All of these things.
That is true by statistics. So, the reason why I'm trying to, I guess, play safe, quote unquote, is because Crowder says this, and I'm not Steven Crowder, guys. Somebody's going to compare me to somebody else. I don't know who. I don't know when, but that just happens to YouTubers. I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready.
All these things increase with single motherhood, and that is something that is expanding because of irresponsible behavior. So Roaming and I both do not want to be irresponsible that way. Also, I want to address quickly, Stephen, your point saying just let people do what they want. I actually agree with you there. However, I have to defend Nick because he was saying, I just want to move the culture in this way. I don't want to force people to do anything. But that's
He doesn't just want to move the culture. At the end of the day, if everything was good and just in Nick Fuentes' eyes, he would make women working illegal. He would do a lot of other stuff that isn't biblical, and man, it's not like, oh, I just want to do this. No. If he had the power,
something where people make decisions that statistically make them happier. If you read books like Charles Murray's Coming Apart, the statistics in there show that yes, having children gives you a more fulfilling life. It gives you yes, more ups and downs. And
look this up for yourself, guys.
Financially rich as you could have been, but it does give you more meaning in your life, and some people appreciate that and want that in their society.
There's a huge difference between saying I think everybody should be able to choose to do what they want to do, but I think that most women would be happy doing this. There's a difference between that and then going on Nick's Twitter and then seeing him find some woman that wants to join like the pharmaceutical industry and being like, look at this dumb fucking cunt. I can't believe this stupid bitch wants to join the working world.
Whoa.
No, because I don't give a fuck about your imaginary boogeyman in the sky. We don't know.
First of all, he's not an imaginary boogeyman. He's a legitimate being, a spiritual being. There's so many evidences and testimonies for that destiny, first of all. Second of all, just, whoa, calm down. No, calm down, man.
Hey, we don't all live our lives by fucking Yahweh.
Actually, hey, I tip my
wow, Destiny. You just really can't, can you? You just.
I see women who are throwing their ovaries and their lives down the drain because some commercial, some like Hyundai Sonata commercial said, look, women could be Jedi, and they should be astronauts. Women could be happy, maybe if they're being a secretary, maybe.
Okay, this is just.
Being a teacher or, whatever. When they pursue these careers, I want them to be happy. I only want women to be happy. I'm the most feminist person here.
Yeah, right. Yeah, sure. And I'm the president. Sure, Nick. Yeah, you're for feminism. No, he's not. Dude, if you want what's best for women, let women make their own choices. When it comes to careers and staying in the house, that's not your authority. That's not your place to tell them, Nick.
Well, I appreciate you stating your views clearly earlier so that you guys understand that this is essentially like fundamentalist Islam, right? This is pretty closely aligned with their views on women, right? You understand that. Lauren, do you understand that?
We don't. Well, like I said, the
radical or one part of Islam. Listen. Not all of Islam and not all the Quran is Muhammad and all the bad stuff. There's some good stuff there if you research. There's more books in the Quran. It's not just the Quran. I'm not a Islamic sympathizer or radical Islamic sympathizer. I'm just saying, if you really want to know the religion, you gotta do the work. You got to research. And Destiny most likely researched a lot, like I did with Buddhism and Hinduism. But not all, like there's I think three groups. One is the violent Muslims. The others are the peaceful Muslims, and the others are, I think, the self-defense Muslims. I might have got that wrong. But you gotta do your research. Not all Muslims are, if I'm correct, jihadists. I think that's the ones that are the most violent and terrorists. So you gotta do your research.
Or Iraq, or whatever.
Okay, but like excessive bullying or moving the culture in a certain direction, you know, like this doesn't, as long as there's not an actual gun held to their head, it's a totally different thing.
Yes.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Well, okay, sure.
I remember when I was 19 and I had that crazy one-dimensional view of the world. It felt so good. Oh, man. Whew.
I think what I was going to say was just that, yes, families need fathers too. And I think what we're talking about is not just a mother, not just a father. We need family units producing just well-raised kids. And that's a good point. And I think what Destiny was doing, Destiny is a stripper name, by the way, but what Destiny was addressing...
Okay, so that matters. Okay,
he's
wow, thank you.
Out of context
thank
to try
you.
To make them
No,
serious
thank you.
We
didn't need that.
That's fine. If that's how he wants to style, that's
well,
cool.
you just get mad because you make a lot of statements where you lie, and then you pretend later that you were trolling. Like when you said you weren't fat as fuck, and then everybody saw you.
Making it okay for women to have babies, we're in a place, like you said, with examples like Tina Fey and stuff. We're talking about pushing single motherhood, or even just single moms, not even having kids. Sorry, just single ladies. And that is supposed to be championed right now when we've proven statistically that women aren't happy that way. They're happier with kids.
Well, that's the statistics, not reality. You see, the thing about statistics is pretty much statistics is the data of reality in some cases, but then reality is reality. It's random. It's not fair. Sometimes it's fair. Depending on the religion, sometimes you need more karma. Sometimes God does things that sometimes we might never know. Why life is so unfair in some cases. I might have said that wrong, so... But at the end of the day, statistics don't determine reality. Reality determines reality. Statistics are there as the educated guess of a presumed or pretty much educated guess of what could happen. This will most likely happen if you go to this such and such. Your car might be broken because the statistics say there's a lot of car breaking or stealing stuff from cars, or people breaking other people's cars to get money or whatever that's in that car by statistics. But reality kicks in, and it's like sometimes that happens and sometimes it doesn't. But the statistics, based on the reality of the data, by the educated guess, we can guess that this is not a good place for us to stay. Now, for a Christian perspective, that's okay, but if God tells us to go to that place, he'll protect or something else that he wants to do.
Choice between career and children, no one ever regrets their children. Unless you had destiny.
No one regrets their children? I mean, I don't think that's
why not just
reality.
let women make choice on their own? Why force people or try to bully people or move people?
No one is saying anything about forcing.
So some parents sadly regret their children.
Women already have the choice to have kids now.
Culture or change our cultural attitudes toward families. No one's talking about forcing anyone to do anything.
And nobody in our culture right now is saying women can't have kids. Who is this invisible boogeyman that's saying?
No one is saying. Okay, when we're talking about this, we're talking about cultural norms and prevailing social attitudes. Right now, no one's saying women cannot have kids, but there is a very, very strong narrative being pushed toward young women.
There is a little bit of a narrative, but that's not. It's not really.
Even like white.
Which mainstream?
Prevailing mainstream narrative.
Mainstream by who? If it's prevailing mainstream, name one person.
Did an article on it. The Spectator just did an article on it. It is all saying why white people shouldn't have kids.
So I can go on the Independent and I can find an article where they say white people shouldn't have children.
You can go on the .orgs and .govs and find that. Like,
I would really love to see that article. Yes.
And .edus. Those are when it comes to data, you usually don't do .coms. You usually do .govs, .orgs, and .edus because those are the most trustworthy.
Where? Who?
That is prominent. Within classrooms, I learned this in my feminist studies class.
So you can't.
I'm not saying you can never use .coms for the data. I'm just saying the best, if you want the best, and sort of essence of a way, unfiltered essence of a way you would want .orgs, .govs, and .edu.
Single major figure.
This is something that I learned in university.
Okay, so you can't name a single so this is a prevailing thing in mainstream culture, but you can't name a single prominent figure that pushes
like
it.
NBC News, CNN, like which one? Fox News, like where?
Go
just
Go on Twitter. Just go on Twitter.
I don't get my politics from Twitter, dog. I get my politics from actual policies that are passed in Congress.
Downstream from culture. We're talking about culture right now.
Right.
And no one's saying that is
Twitter
illegal
is part of culture, though,
but a lot of the
Destiny.
regressive they're trying to push this idea that if you're a Western and a woman, you should not be having children, and that is an issue, and that is an attitude that I think we need to
that you've seen from people on Twitter, and that's the main informing thing in your life. Like, this is what I'm fighting against, because I saw some really bad tweets in a Sargon video.
Like, go on the Independent, right? Lauren Southern.
On the Independent, she just said that article didn't exist.
She said it talked about in fact, lots of feminist philosophers say we must. Will you deny the fact that many feminist philosophers say we must dissolve the white nuclear family?
No, this is the problem when you argue with you people.
Sorry, what? The white nuclear family? Why is it the white nuclear family? That's why Black Lives Matter. That's why the Black Lives Matters website. Check it out for yourself. They say they want to pretty much change or abolish the nuclear family. No wonder they put that there, because you said white nuclear family. It's the nuclear family. It's not the white nuclear family. And I think what Destiny is going to say, what I'm going to say as well, is that for people like this person and Steven Crowder, they always look for the extremes of an ideology and say that's the main that's like the main thing of the ideology, like the left or liberals or Democrats. That is why I don't really watch Steven Crowder that much. Is because he only goes to the extreme, the radical Democrats, but never the radical Republicans. No, he can never do that. I mean, he talks to Alex Jones. He's like a radical right-winger. But that's one of the problems with people like Steven Crowder and just in general. They always go to the extremes and not really go to the moderates or to people like Destiny, which I would really like to see. I'm not trying to plan anything. I'm just saying it would be great if Destiny and Steven Crowder would ever debate one another. I mean, that would be pretty good. Like, I would watch that.
You find, like, if I want to argue against a policy you people, you know what I mean. When I want to argue against a policy by, say, Republicans in the United States or right-leaning politicians in the United States, I can point to actual legislation penned by actual congressmen and senators in Congress, and I can talk about the impacts that these things will have. So, for instance, attacks on women's rights to choose for an abortion, or the North Carolina voter ID law, or the transgender ban that Trump said, right? I point to these things and I'll say these are problems. But then for Lauren, or roaming millennial, or no dumbass, or whatever, what you guys will do is you'll find, well, look at these 7 tweets that I found, and look at the professor that I had in college. Like, how can you think that these things are at all the same type of thing?
Professors are actually more important. Again, politics.
Oh my God!
I mean, the professors have the data. Like, they study this stuff depending on the teacher.
Do you really believe that?
I mean, come on.
What you're saying right now. So you believe that right now
the people. Hang on, Destiny. I'm a woman. Let me talk. Stop mansplaining. The people that are being
of course,
professors right
the
now,
Crowder.
Like
I'm sorry. I'm not trying to debate Crowder. I'm just saying.
There's a state school system.
Wow.
You don't have.
You don't even believe that, but you'll use it.
But when you have this almost anti-Western bent being taught from the time children go to school, especially when they're in university, that affects the way people think.
There is a little bit of a narrative saying that the founding fathers were all racist white guys with wigs, even though they weren't.
Your entire argument is that
wait, let me just jump in here. Sorry, I just want to point out that The Guardian called Macron racist, Vox called Macron racist, The Independent called Macron racist. This is just the first page of articles.
I'm guessing Snopes called them racist as well. Maybe, I don't know.
I would love to see the articles. I'm curious, but yeah, we can look it up. But essentially, what you
look it up.
Yeah, I will. Essentially, what you're saying.
If you know what Snopes is, Crowder used Snopes for saying something with Joe Biden. I think it's like a sort of conservative or right-wing
saying is that if the leftist policies in the school carry
I think it's pretty
enough,
new.
It is possible that at some undetermined date in the future,
this
left-leaning
isn't like an ad
might
for
actually make it to
Snopes. I'm
Congress
just
where
saying.
leading thought now. That's what you're essentially saying.
Not only that it's possible, but also just that it's manifest in our lives right now.
But you can't point out a single way it has been in terms of legislation or
This isn't
policy.
sponsored by Snows,
Statistics. Look at the number of unwed mothers. Look at the number of single mothers. That's it manifests right there.
So left-leaning thought is causing.
Look at the number of children who are not having children. It manifests in our society right now.
What policy has a Democrat proposed to the United States that's caused this to happen?
Well, I think abortion would be one of them. The welfare state would be another.
Abortion contributes to single. That's literally the opposite of having an unwed single mother.
We're talking about life choices in general, and the way now that abortion is so readily available, women are free to be a lot more promiscuous, and they're making worse decisions for their lives. And the promiscuity women
a lot of times, yes, but
really affects
not
their likelihood of forming long-term stable commitments.
That's like a case-by-case
scenario.
So you think the government needs to be legislating morality for how promiscuous we're allowed to be? I thought you were the person of small government.
That's authoritarianism, isn't it? I just talked about this. We were on the road. If the government controls morality, it's authoritarianism, pretty much. Saying that their morality is better than your morality, depending on what it is. Like, if it was like, don't kill dogs, if the government tells you not to kill dogs without any reason, you just kill them just because, that's different.
I didn't say they need to legislate, you can't sleep with these people, but when we're talking about things like, let's say welfare states, like if you enable a behavior and make it easier to do, you're encouraging it. And it's not that we need to outlaw promiscuity, but we shouldn't make it easy for large single mothers or single mothers to have these large families.
I guess what they're trying to say is we should help them, but not like baby them. I don't know what they're trying to say.
I will give you a chance to respond, but we've had someone join the chat who is Brightside here.
Oh no.
Hello.
Yeah, so I guess in terms of American values or American society, I thought that, or at least for my goal personally, for my personal philosophy, is you always want to enable people to make the most choices that they can to maximize their own personal happiness. So things like access to contraceptives or things like giving women the right to choose for an abortion, these are positive things. If you want to argue against it, you can, but that seems to be, earlier I think you made fun of Nick because you said that he was authoritarian and you were libertarian, but now you're talking about how the state needs to cut off access to things like abortion because we're enabling women to make bad choices or something.
Well, I think abortion is its own thing because I think
it's like stealing, but of course abortion isn't like stealing.
Not die.
It's totally different.
But when we're talking about
I guess they're trying to say some things that the government should do because it's majority morally good
than
stealing from anybody.
Women. It's like that was an issue that needed to be addressed in government.
Of course, abortion is much more complex than just stealing money from a bank, obviously.
Very much destroyed the prevalence of the nuclear family, especially when we're talking about low-income communities. And if we're looking at that now, 40 years ago or 50 years ago, the African-American instance of marriage was comparable to white families. If we look at that now, it's totally been destroyed. And we can't ignore the policy implications that have come from things like, enlarging the the welfare state. And when we're talking about, I by the way never said we should limit access to contraception. That's something you threw in there. Just want to mention that's something I've never said. But we can't ignore that when we subsidize something, we make it easier to do, and that's very much the fact with single mothers right now.
Yeah,
let's.
Okay.
Can't put it anywhere.
This is getting this is stagnating in one spot. We're just screaming at each other about single motherhood. Not that it's not a fascinating topic and a massive problem in the West right now, but I do want to see if anyone wants to move on to any other topics so that we can keep this entertaining, keep this fun, and move on to other people. Nick, Darren, Meadowcur, anything you want to talk about?
Not in particular. No, I'm good.
If we're opening it up to just different topics of conversation, Destiny, what brand of stilts do you use? Because
that was a nice one, dude. I love it when people.
We could talk about that.
Sure, perfect.
I don't know. Is anybody in this call selling fucking T-shirts about this? Because it's kind of gay. I got to be honest. I've heard some people are trying to make some money off of that. It's a little bit dumb in my opinion.
Right. I'm actually going to be hoping to go out and put some of the posters out. Manufacturing at mass.
They're saying it's okay to be white thing.
Offensive.
It's pretty obvious what the goal is. I guess if your goal is to just piss people off. It kind of reminds me of the All Lives Matter movement.
sort of like Satanism, this ticking.
Well, no, it doesn't really expose any
Christians
hypocrisy.
off.
When a campus come out and say this message does not
I don't have
represent
time for you.
a message that says
Like it's okay to be white. Like
you really just read it. You just really you read
it's okay to be black too. It's
What? What are you
it's
talking
okay to
about,
be
Destiny?
any color.
It's obvious what's going on in the country with the anti-white bias.
Anti-white. Oh God, it's so hard to be a white man today in America.
Steve.
Oh God.
Well, it's easy because,
in some
white.
cases,
we are
but
pretty
not
strong.
like.
We've been through a lot, so it's not difficult. But there is an anti-white bias. Look, affirmative action.
I mean,
policy.
there is an
affirmative
anti-white
action.
bias. I mean,
all that generation.
I mean, there is some anti-white bias, but it depends on what it is. You mean anti-white, like leadership, like. The bias isn't as big as people like, say, Crowder say that it is in some cases. Because at the end of the day, normal people are not radical left or radical right or libertarian or conservative. They're just normal people trying to do their stuff, trying to be a good person. See, me and people like Destiny and everybody else, we're not the average person. And trust me, I used to be the average person. So average people aren't really, like, it's not like average people are average people.
Handed down by whites over and over
and they're a
again.
majority.
Oh no, in some schools, some kids. Oh man. Oh, I'm glad that your personal story is representative of the average white man.
There's been
anti-black bias. Such a cunning understanding of statistics and data. Keep it up.
I mean, if you said that, I will be like, yeah, anti-white bias. Yes, but not as much as anti-black bias.
That black people are discriminated against, that there's this institutional racism against non-whites.
They are discriminated against. We are discriminated against. There are some policies that are racist.
Against white people are those affirmative action policies. And you ask if those hurt people. You ask if that makes a difference. Of course it does. You know, that you tell somebody who's white, they don't get to go to college because of the color of their skin. They don't.
Yeah, that is pretty racist.
In places where that was challenged, like at the University of Texas, they still took the top 10% of applicants, and the Supreme Court struck that down as not necessarily being a racist policy.
You're using your personal story to disprove
my personal story? I'm not a UTEX student. I'm sorry. I didn't know that citing Supreme Court law. If you want to talk about actual discrimination, we can go back to more Supreme Court law, like the voter ID laws in North Carolina.
We all know there's an
voter ID laws do not discriminate by their written laws.
Listen, I wouldn't know.
Against any race.
I'm just saying, I'm not from
stop.
North Carolina, so I wouldn't really know.
Racist, and not just
Plus,
against
I
whites,
didn't
but
look it
also
up,
against
so
Asians.
I mean, like, write a letter to the Supreme Court, dude. I don't want to argue their case against you. I mean, like, in North Carolina, it was very, very clearly targets black people. The state legislature requested data by racial breakdown in order to disallow the very specific dates that black people voted and the very specific types of ID that black people used to vote, and to close very specific black majority voting booths, right? I know that for people like you, for the enlightened centrists, if it's not there in the letter of the law, you don't think that it's racist, but for the rest of us that have to deal with the pragmatic implementation of policy in the real world,
yeah, it's like, oh, a black person can't do that. It doesn't have to say that. It doesn't have to say this black person can't, or black people can't do this. It doesn't have to say that.
I like to say, let's hold everybody to the same standard. Let's have the same expectations.
Nick, you say that?
But you know what, Destiny?
Okay.
You don't care about black people. In fact,
Nick, you don't care about black people.
All these excuses. Oh, well, it was voter ID laws. Oh, well, it's explicitly anti-black. No. The truth of the matter is, how much money has been dedicated to these programs for inner cities, for black youth, for blacks in STEM, for blacks in college, diversity quotas, and nothing's changed. So it's time to say, you know what? We are in the post-racial America. I grew up in a country where there was no institutional discrimination. It's time to say, look, everybody's got to play ball. Everybody's got to play by the same rules.
How do you explain studies where they take similar applications and they switch out a white name with a black name, and the guy has a 50% chance less of getting a call back? How do you explain something like that?
I can explain that easily.
That doesn't happen all the time. Again, percentages are people, and
statistics. For example,
statistics don't determine reality. It determines the hypothetical. It determines the educated guess of reality.
By the way, the proportions are virtually the same, whether it's rape, murder, whatever you want to divide it by.
So, wait, before we get into crime stats, why did you pivot?
Why did I?
Why is it fair that if a black guy has the exact same application as a white person and his name is switched with a white person, he'll have twice the chance of getting hired?
And by the way, where does this happen?
What? It's one of the most popular studies on institutional racism in the United States.
Let's see this. What study?
What study? Yeah, I need to know. Destiny, come on, just say it. What's like?
No, everyone has heard of it. It's like one of the most off-cited
things.
I'm
throwing you a bone. Just hold on a second, okay? Right. But I think what's interesting regarding that study, if you look at what are the traditionally black names that they've chosen, they're actually, I mean, they're things like, Shaniqua, things like that. Black people have names like Darren, like Wilson, things like that.
So if the black person has the wrong name, it's okay to discriminate against them?
Hang on, I'm making a point. How do you think a white person with a name like, I don't know, Billy Bob Thornton would do? Like, how do you think a white person with a name like, I don't know, Mary Sue, or like, I don't know, hillbilly redneck names? I think, I'm not saying that racism doesn't exist within individual hiring practices, but I also think there's an element of classism here that perhaps people are ignoring.
There's some classism, but it's sort of a little mixture of racism, classism.
You take white names, replace them with black names, and somehow extract.
And I mean, like, just to tell you guys, it's like when I go to, like, campouts, I can really count the black people. Usually, with my experience, I've done more than 100 camps. I'm just saying, I have done more than 100 campouts. I've done this for years. I know this. I usually can count like 3 to 4, and for the white boys, not to be racist, but for the white boys, it's like just a flood. So I don't know if it's racial bias. It's most likely not, because it is, I think, true by statistics, if I'm correct, that most white people are adventurous and most black people aren't as adventurous. So there is that. It's more of a, I wouldn't say that was racist. I just noticed that. I don't think that's racist. I don't think that has a racist bias to it. I'm just saying.
What is a white name versus a black name? Give me a black name.
I don't think it's class. I just sometimes think it's maybe more societal.
Is white supremacist? Is Steven not a black name?
Not generally. Are we going to sit here? I love the
Steven a black name?
That white people don't have certain names generally, and black people tend to have certain. How many white women do you know named Shaniqua or Letitia?
That's a black name. That's not racist. That's fact. That is the name that most black people use. Therefore, it is a black name. That's how that works.
Like St. Louis, the Pope, fucking the 23rd.
I'm hearing a lot of problematic rhetoric coming out of you.
I love the memery. When we backed into a corner that we can't respond with. Better pull out our memes, boys.
Problematic.
Does anyone else here like Lake Hekistan?
I don't believe there is any.
Anyone else here like Pee the Frog, guys? Anyone else in here short, boys? Anybody else?
I must know about, easily Googleable, where he kept repeatedly entering his poetry to be accepted, to be published,
Sounds pretty good.
And he could not get it published until he changed his name to an Asian name, because then he was suddenly within a criteria of like diversity hiring. So within the arts, within other fields, you certainly see this as well. And this is just a natural thing that exists in the world. It is certainly being pushed by leftist agendas who want to get rid of whites. And right now, our culture is currently pushing
radical,
against any sort of agenda
extreme left is anti-white, and the extreme right is anti-black.
Even if that is still
it's not like the moderate. It's not the theme. It's the radicals. It's the extremists.
I cited one of the most comprehensive studies from the National Bureau of Economics Research called Are Emily and Greg More Employable Than Lakeisha and Jamal? The study is kind of old, but it has been one of the most comprehensive studies. They did thousands of applications on this to see whether or not it... What?
Okay, well then, Stephen, let me cite the law. There's diversity hiring in Canada for all government jobs. If I'm a woman or someone who is black or Asian or whatever, I am more likely to get a job in the military or police force or in education. That is the freaking law. So beyond just social prejudices, we have it as a legal prejudice against whites.
True. And also,
that happened.
Well, I don't. I mean, the goal behind affirmative action policies is that usually they try to open up positions or they try to find ways to help groups that have been disproportionately impacted by past
you
law.
can do
and
that.
Generally, white people don't seem to be hurt by this very much. That's why we're not having a discussion right now about how all of the white communities are being destroyed and all of the whitehood or whatever white people are being thrown into poverty as a result of these horrible, atrocious affirmative action programs. Like,
not saying that there aren't any predominantly white neighborhoods that are, shootings and all that, but that's mostly for predominantly black neighborhoods. That's a more of an important thing. We can bring those situations in as well, but the main thing is the black community, and it's been done longer and more worse. So that's why people aren't talking about white on cop crime.
Well, the law says this thing, but you can't find me these communities of white people that are being destroyed by criminal justice systems or are being destroyed by, failing education systems or fucking.
I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it rarely happens.
Like, black people commit crime, black people go to jail. It's the criminal justice system. No, maybe there's.
Oh no, don't. This guy might think it's on. He does think it's on rates. Definitely not cultural.
I mean, like, if you look at reported rates for marijuana use, there are plenty of age groups. I think in every age group, except for like 2 or 3, like 5-year chunks, white people report higher use of marijuana than black people do. But black people are like twice as likely to be locked up for it.
Yeah, that's because there's more violent crime. That's because there's more violent crime in black neighborhoods.
Okay, so the way that
they get locked up for because the police have to be there. I don't know if you've ever been to Chicago, Stephen, but there's a lot of marijuana usage where I am in the suburbs. Not a lot of gang killings, not a lot of rape. You go a little bit east, and there's a lot of that stuff. It makes sense why the police goes over there. These days, you can all day long. You want to pretend that at once there's no differences between people. We're all equal. They're so poor. They, whatever, blah blah blah. But at the same time,
that is true. I have to admit, if you think that it's equal, then it isn't. Okay.
Black names at the same time. You can't have it all ways.
No, I don't want to have it all ways.
Agreeing with
you always
Nick.
try to present
I'm just
this
saying.
as the most hyperbolic thing possible. Believe it or not, it is simultaneously possible to recognize that there are problems in the black community. Some of them maybe even belonging to black people and black cultures themselves, while also recognizing that black people have disproportionately faced really fucked up things in their history in America that other white people
really
haven't.
Screwed up stuff, yes. Very screwed up stuff. That is true.
What are some, David? I'm just curious. What would you say are
slavery, Jim Crow, let's see, KKK, the Confederacy, the Civil War. We can go on. 19.
Well, I mean, black people's relationship to the police is pretty
that as well. There's just so many.
Stop doing crimes.
Oh,
that was so enlightened, dude. Just stop doing crimes, dude.
Or from black people to the police.
What?
I said in what context? We were talking like black cultural problems. I just want to hear you name a few. Do you mean their relationship with the police as in the police are treating them badly or black people are responding badly?
Yes, and also sometimes a lot of black people are responding to the police in a disrespectful way. That is true. But there's the other side as well. It's not black and white. This isn't black and white. I'm part of the black community. I'm a black person. I'm part of the black community.
I would say it's probably a combination of both. But a lot of this roots from the problems of police legitimately fucking up black people and earlier in the 50s and 60s and shit, right? A lot of culture is reactionary to other problems.
Not the F word, but I agree.
Nobody's 20 years
and for some
today.
people and Christians in general, it's very frustrating when somebody curses and you're like, I agree with that. I'm not agreeing with the cursing. I'm agreeing of what he's saying. Destiny Prima said, without cursing, a lot of black people are getting pulled over or being shot by the police due to the racism of the police in the 50s and 60s. He could have said that, but he said the effed up stuff. I don't agree with the language that he's saying. I'm agreeing of what he's saying. Not the language, but overall what he's saying that I agree with. Obviously, that makes sense. I'm a Christian. I don't curse.
No, but their literal parents and grandparents do, dude.
Yeah, exactly. You think it just goes away? You think Jim Crow just goes away? I mean, it did, but there was the repercussions of it. Every law has
ridiculous. You know,
everything
yeah, that's ridiculous. But
just
paying
because
them
it's
all
gone
$1,000
doesn't mean it
to
has
ship them back to
repercussions.
Africa. That's a very realistic problem right there. Okay.
Talking about shipping them back to Africa.
All right.
Yeah, okay.
Wait,
I gotta stop somewhere near 20 minutes because my battery's a little bit low.
Isn't that part of the big meme for
general.
building your white ethno state? Is you have to ship some of these people back to the country?
Steve.
Wait, so how do you deal with it right now? How do you deal with all those evil brown and black people in the United States right now?
What are you talking about, wacky Steve?
You want a white super? I'm sorry, I thought you mentioned a white supermajority of the United States earlier. Did you not?
Yeah. By raising birth rates, by having families again.
So how do you keep Hispanic and black people from having kids and make white people have more kids? I'm asking how you do it. No, I want you to talk about it. How do you do it? How do you fix it?
Okay, so Nick, in his racist ideology, won a white majority country by making more babies, but the only way you would do that is to make more white babies and less black and Latino and Chinese and other non-white babies. I don't think Nick knows his racist ideology. I thought he did, but that makes sense as a racist ideology, which I don't agree with. But like, if you want a more majority white or black or Latino country, you would most likely want to have more babies of that race and less babies of another race. I mean, that's racist, but I'm just saying. I'm not racist. I'm just saying that is what Nick Fuentes, I think, was trying to say, but yet he's saying, no, I don't want that. And I'm like, but you do, Nick. Hopefully he repents and doesn't want it anymore, and just I pray amen. But as of now, in 2018, if I'm correct by this video, he wants that.
Steven, do you think it's been like an accident that the population of whites in the country went from 90%
I think sadly
to
he still wants
in 50 years? You think that was an accident?
It was,
and
yeah.
For us,
it kind of was, yeah, sure.
Move in the opposite direction. We're villains for that. The country went from 90% to 67% in 50 years. You know that their population hasn't been maintained. You think, by the way, Stephen, do you think it's been like an accident that the population of whites in the country went from 90% to 67% in 50 years? You think that was an accident?
It was,
and
yeah.
For us,
it kind of was, yeah, sure.
Move in the opposite direction.
But
we're villains for that. You are the ones that want to push this artificial transformation, unnatural transformation of our country.
It's very natural. What?
Okay.
It's insanely natural. It's just immigration. You're the one who's talking about.
I know, right?
We're villains for that. You're the ones that want to push this artificial transformation, unnatural transformation of our country.
It's very natural.
What?
It's insanely natural. It's just immigration. You're the one who's talking about arbitrarily restricting certain people to coming to the country. You're the definition of arbitrary.
It's hardly arbitrary to say the people from broken non-states, from failed states shouldn't come into our country. Hey, Syria, you can't come in here. You call that arbitrary when 20% of their people support ISIS? I don't think so.
I mean, Syria is a refugee case. Do you want to talk about refugees or immigrants, or do you just mix all these groups together?
Well, okay, let's take Mexico, for example, where south of certain districts, it's lawless. You have no government. The cartels run the country. So, yeah, I mean, you could take Mexico, El Salvador, Guatemala, Nicaragua, Africa.
What legislation or policies? What legislation or policies are Mexicans pushing in the United States that are causing it to turn into Mexico?
All right, just
1965 and 1965
What is 1965? No, I want to know what policies Mexicans have come to the United States and proposed and supported that are turning us into Mexico.
It's not Mexicans doing it. It's a certain group of rootless transnational elites. The Hart-Celler Act, which pushed certain provisions, it eliminated the national origins quota. It said that it allowed chain migration so that people that are families of immigrants can come here. That was deliberate. And again, you put the burden of proof on us to end your program to transform our country.
This wasn't your program. This wasn't our program.
This was guys. Okay. The white men have taken over the chat. This is absolutely disgusting. It is bigoted. I've had enough of white men running this stream. So we are going to bring some minority voices.
Don't go after these people
here. Baron, do you want to jump
in
and comment on any of the autistic screeching you've heard for the last 30 minutes?
Well, every time I have a moment to jump in to comment on a topic, we've already moved on to another topic. I still have some thoughts. It's okay to be white thing. So that's a while ago. I know. I know,
noticed that train.
You guys are so heated, and I guess I'm not assertive enough to just jump in and say, everyone shut up. But is it worth going back on that? Otherwise, we can just carry on, and I'll just comment on something if I have a thought on any new.
No.
I'm okay with going
back. Bring up a new point. Bring up something new. Yeah.
Oh, something completely new?
Oh, whatever you want. Everyone,
okay.
This is a diverse stream. Everyone is allowed to bring in new opinions. Everyone's allowed to talk.
No, I wanted to comment on the "it's okay to be white" thing because it dovetails into a larger point that I have. So that was put up on university campuses, right?
Yes, all over the place.
Okay, well, the thing is that we all know that anti-white sentiments are prevailing on campus. I mean, that is just obvious. So I think that makes a lot of sense to put
the data yourself,
stuff like that, like "it's okay to be white" signs up on university campuses. And I think the thing with the mainstream media and leftists is that they just immediately
it's the radicals, not the moderates, and that's the problem. You're talking about the extremes of the ideology. I think that is the ideology, even though it isn't.
But I still think it's still important to.
But sometimes it is, like most of the left.
To interpret statements, to use the best plausible interpretation of a statement or argument when conversing with someone else, and that's a problem on both sides. I think there's a problem with the right and a problem with the left when dealing with each other, is that they don't employ the principle of charity towards one another.
So, like Nick and Steven, everything is translated in the worst possible translation of the way. Spaghetti. That's my second language.
For example, when Steven said black names, obviously he didn't mean names that are inherently black. Obviously, he meant names that are predominantly associated or are mostly assigned to people who are black. That is the most reasonable, the best, strongest plausible interpretation. So that's not fair, right? That is not charitable. And then I'm sure Steve said a bunch of things towards Nick that was not really very charitable towards Nick, though I can't think of one right now.
Well, this is the nature of debate these days. It's funny, it's entertaining, and it is helpful to debate. And when the opponent in a debate is not charitable with you, why be charitable with them is what it ultimately comes down to. It's not necessarily the most radical, centrist, most reasonable way of approaching things, but it is the world we live in, and it is the state of debate that we are in now. It's gotten to extremes where, of course, you have, for example, the Antifa holding up that "we support pedos, no pedo bashing" thing, where they literally dropped that immediately after, according to some articles, and interpreting that the wrong way. Let's go to Steven and Nick.
They said where's the common ground? I think that's the question.
People like Steven need to be thrown in jail. Okay.
Of course, dude. People like Nick Fuentes need to be in jail if they had power. Because no, I mean, Destiny, no, not really. Nick, I might agree. Don't actually try to put Nick Fuentes in jail. Don't do that, guys. No, let's not go down to his level here. Let's not go for real. Let's not do that, guys.
I'm not even Jewish, dude. Why would you say that? Fuck.
The problem. Why are you reading into? You're like people ruling the country, and then you think, are you anti-Semitic?
Transnational. I know, dude. I watched all the Mouthy Buddha videos.
Nick, you're anti-Semitic. Don't know.
I know who those transnationalist elites are. I got my eyes on them.
You are an anti-Semite, okay? But here's where we can find.
I'm just a realist, dude.
Here's where we can find some common ground. People like Steven have to be held responsible for the fact that they are pushing policies that are transformative, and the natural order continues to be perverted. And I think if we could argue from that axiom, where Steven has to justify millions of people coming here, instead of me having to justify why we don't take millions of people, I think that's a productive way to change the conversation.
I mean, you shouldn't just take anybody, but don't blame people for coming to the best country in the world.
I mean,
think about it.
Nick's constant use of the term natural order, because I think it's a complete misnomer. I think it's maybe in your mind.
Yes, because natural order to some is what Buddhism says, or Christianity. Everybody has their own opinion, natural order. But at the end of the day, by looking at science and facts, a cat will always stay as a cat. Not being anti-transgender, I'm just saying a cat will always be a cat. But when it comes to something like a boy will always be a boy, that's a little bit more complicated in a lot of cases. So there's natural order in a sensible way, but it's not everything.
Or cultural order, it's not natural order. I don't think you
it's more of a cultural thing when it comes to humanity in some cases. But there are natural order things, like a baby is going to be immature. That's a natural order of things. But when they grow up, they either become more mature or stay immature. Usually more mature. Again, like something like that, that's not, as you can see, some things are in humanity natural orders, like I just explained to you, but also like I just explained to you, there are some things that are not in the natural order, or pretty much natural order of things. Nick Fuentes is trying to say the moral code of things. That's it. But let's be real, Nick Fuentes doesn't have a moral code. I mean, he has some moral code, maybe, but I don't want to get into that, really.
Nature and biodiversity, if you want to equate natural order with whatever you're talking about, because nature is actually allows for a lot of variation.
It does, but sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes things are objective. Again, a cat will always be a cat. You can try to let it go fish or protect, or I want to say protect your home, but pretty much if you try to like make it think like a dog, feel like a dog, walk like a dog, at the end of the day it'll always still say meow instead of bark. Pretty much. It'll always be a cat, so there's that. Are there variations of cats? Yes, but at the end of the day they're all still cats.
And of course there are trends. Of course women are on average predisposed to want to have children, but that doesn't mean that nature doesn't allow for some women who are predisposed to probably hate to have children and would probably be better off not having children. This whole idea that
true, is that natural? I think that's more of a societal or at the home rather than a natural order. I don't think that was a natural choice. I think that was a choice given just either by the home or society or culture. So I wouldn't say that's a natural thing.
That there is this this order ordained by nature, in your case God, onto humans is just fallacious. The reality of the situation is that nature is constantly in flux, that the environment is constantly in flux, and we're constantly adapting. So the natural order is constantly changing.
Well, no, not really, though. The natural order is not always changing. It has different variations of it, but not really changing. Again, a wolf will always be a wolf. I mean, there's variations of wolves, but always be a wolf in this case. Like, so I gotta. I sort of agree, but not all the way.
Your understanding of what humans should be with nature.
Well, you're one to lecture on naturalism, but the natural order thing, we all understand what that means. And
no, Nick, please don't. Please don't, Nick. He's gonna do it. He's gonna do it, guys. He has AOGD, LGBTQD. Pretty much, sorry. LGBTQ plus D. Afraid of LGBTQ plus people disorder. I should put a P there, but I'm not gonna do that.
Up until very recently, we all understood what that means.
What are you talking about? You're someone to talk.
Because you're a trans degenerate, is what he's saying.
Because you know you're trans, you know, and Nick, he has AOGD. That's where it starts. Then the other one that I said, it starts like that. I'm not like I'm not a medical, physician, if I said that right, or mental physician, but I'm just saying I made that up because I don't really like to say the term homophobic or transphobic, because if you truly know what a phobia means, people aren't really homophobic or transphobic. Xenophobic, yes, that is an actual
lifestyle. You are making choices that are unnatural. And that's not me saying that. That is God saying that.
No. No, please. Absolutely. That's bullshit.
Okay.
The idea that nature doesn't allow for variation.
Where do you see gender reassignment surgeries in the animal kingdom? Where do you see like little kangaroos operating?
You see, again, that's why nature has many variations. Some variations are in the animal kingdom and some are in humanity. That's how that works, Nick. But of course I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised of Nick's personality here. I'm not surprised.
Can you not make this about me?
Well,
like,
I mean,
you're someone to talk about this.
Hey, you brought yourself
that's an ad hominem. That's an ad hominem.
Oh, okay.
Well, I was talking about your ideas. I was talking about your ideas, and then you made it about my gender.
Well, we know why you take issue with this natural order.
No, I'm not.
Oh my gosh, Nick, please stop.
I'm not talking about the whole trans thing. I'm relating this to like women wanting to or not wanting to have kids.
Well, and then in that case,
exactly.
That's just like that is just perfect example of an ad hominem.
Fair enough. But then, with regard to women, the exception proves the rule. Of course, you can have women that are working. Of course, you have anomalies. Catherine the Great, Joan of Arc, Elizabeth, Victoria. We can have exceptions, but the exceptions prove the rule. I mean, that's the whole point. I mean, you wouldn't say, for example, that because you have an apple.
Yes, well, that's why I'm saying.
By some freak example, an apple is blue. You wouldn't say that apples come in red, green, and blue.
That natural order allows for variation. You just proved my point.
But I mean, it's only like 2 for apples, like red and green. There is no blue. So at the end of the day, here's the thing. And I find this is fact, not really opinion. The natural order has different variations, sometimes changes depending on the climate of things on the earth, but at the end of the day, there's still going to be objective truths. A tiger will always be a tiger. Are there variations of tigers? Yes. Are there some tigers that look different from normal tigers? Yes. But it's still in the tiger family because it is, we profile it as a tiger because of its natural traits that never go away. Whereas with humanity, it's very more complicated. There's a lot of changes, but there are some things at the end of the day are objective truth. Like I'll always have brown hair. That was a good example of my hair will always be brown because I can always dye it. Well, wood will always be wood unless if you change it enough to be paper. But at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is that when it comes to the natural order, I guess you can say, in a sense of a way, scientifically, biologically, in a sense of a way, biblically, if you want to go there, things will stay the same, but some things will change and some things have variations at the end of the day.
Right. You have an idea in your mind of religious order. You have an idea in your mind of
yes, the Roman Catholic religious order of things, but not the natural order of things. There's a difference. I mean, if you want to put that in, then okay. I think some things that science gets it from religion and vice versa, depending on what you're talking about. But what Nick's talking about is his own personal Roman Catholic beliefs, not the natural order of things.
I don't see eye to eye with Nick on everything, but I don't think it's necessarily him inserting religion into this to say that the natural order is for people to be forming pair bonds and having children.
No,
even if we accept that some people.
When it comes to like if one man really talks to another woman, usually in a lot of cases naturally they'll bond, either in a romantic relationship or friendship relationship. That's with anybody really. but it's usually with the man and a woman. Not saying that 2 men or 2 women can't have that, I guess you could say, quote unquote experience, I guess you can say, but I'm just saying that's what I'm talking about with the okay. I mean, but what I'm trying to get out of the weeds here. That was a good example, guys. I'm sorry. What I was trying to say is that you sometimes naturally, when a man and a woman, like, go together, maybe play golf, they usually form a bond. Same thing with man, woman, and woman. It just depends on where you are culturally as well. Culture always takes a role with some natural things, because naturally I could eat beignets, but somebody in Chicago, that's different. They will naturally maybe have, I think, hot dogs with ketchup or without ketchup because of their culture thing, and they say that's sort of, as a joke, a natural thing that Chicago people do. It isn't necessarily natural, but due to the culture, it becomes natural by that culture, because culture has variations. Hopefully I got that right. I'm sorry, I was out of the weeds. I was trying to get out of the weeds, guys. I was really trying to get out of the weeds.
Individuals may not want to do that. It is undisputably the natural order for people to
you're talking.
Well,
you guys are talking about 2 different things. You're talking about the natural order as exists as a scientific fact. Nick is asserting that it is a philosophical ought. These are 2 gaps that most people generally.
It's both.
No, it's not both. It's not both.
Well,
Unless you're Sam Harris, it's not both. You cannot bridge the fact that some things exist in the world of science and they all of a sudden become biological imperatives. We spend plenty of time in our daily lives. We are talking to each other on video screens using computers to communicate with one another. Okay, we do a lot of things that can't be directly tied to our biological imperatives. Generally,
that's ridiculous.
Right, but that doesn't.
But it's not. Well, I mean, if you don't believe, do you hunt for your food, Nick? Have you gone out hunting recently?
Of course, it's different.
Exactly, you don't. So you do not believe in your.
No. But in principle, well, and we can talk about Ted Kaczynski and if we should even be doing all of this. But besides the point, we're using tools. But the fundamental reality that
use tools to kill your food.
Well, this is a tool. The market process, the civilization,
can be considered
a sociological tool, of course. I mean, that's a fallacious argument that I don't think anybody thinks is relevant to the conversation. To equate anarcho-primitivism to using your biological limitations to govern your decision making. You don't think anybody equates those 2 except for you.
Well, nobody in society that talks about morals or ethics.
All right, you two are going to take over the stream again, so I'm going to give Theron a chance to respond and then Roaming a chance to respond.
Here's the difference. Someone who is a woman who is naturally predisposed not to want to have children and probably not be a good mother and probably someone who shouldn't have children. She's not someone who goes against the natural order. She is someone who is part of the natural order as a variation on that order.
Due to some cultures, but that's not all the time.
Being exception to the rule and going against the rule.
It does
and this
change,
idea of
it just
intentionality,
depends.
and that's where natural order, that's where this religious thinking comes in, and where the moralistic argumentation comes in. That is exactly what Nick is talking about.
I think the problem is pretty obvious.
He's using nature to explain his religiosity, and I don't agree with that. Even if I consider myself a traditionalist in many ways, and I think that our society should be a lot more traditional in many ways, I'm not going to use natural order to explain my point of view.
Well, no one does.
Okay, here we go. I think I can identify the problem, and the problem here seems to be semantics. It seems to be that, of course, Barren, you are right. Variations are part of the natural order, technically speaking. However, when we're speaking on just a general term of naturally, this is typically what happens. Generally speaking, I understand what Nick's point is, and generally speaking, I understand what Roaming Millennial's point is, but technically speaking, you are correct.
But that's not just
over semantics. This is an argument over semantics, though.
This is not a semantics argument. This is an argument of philosophy.
Because there's a very, very, very important difference in meaning when you say someone is an exception to the natural order and someone is going against the natural order or the ordained word of God. There's a difference between just existing as a woman who just is naturally
I
predisposed
think this
not to
is
want to
right a
have
little bit.
children,
This is
and
argument
a
of
woman who is,
philosophy rather than,
sinning
like,
against the word
I
of God because
guess,
she doesn't want to have
natural
children.
order.
Well, I mean, I don't think Nick
Well,
has
natural order has
said
its
that in the stream, that people are
philosophies,
sinning
depending
against
on
the word of
who
God.
you're
And they don't
talking
want
about.
to
Didn't
sin.
Nick advocate for
I'm talking
conversion
about
therapy for
intentionality here.
transgenders?
I'm talking about
Of
intention.
course he did.
Right, but I think when we
Even
think
though that
about
was a wrong thing to do.
Intention onto nature.
Not
You can't
Christian.
describe your morality.
Conversion therapy is not
No, you
Christian.
can't.
fundamentally immoral.
It's
Natural selection does not have intention.
Well, the
No,
intention,
if you
when
believe
we're
it.
talking about reproduction, and the intent of reproduction is to have children.
But that's not how we
yes,
use
but
it in
that's not
society
for
today. Everybody uses
everybody. That's the
contraceptives.
thing. That's not really a natural thing. Even Christians sometimes are single and not have children. It's a sort of in the ground level, I think if I'm getting the right thing, get the right saying right, it's a philosophical sort of given for Christians to get married and raise kids. That's more of a philosophical given or a Christian given, but it's not it's not like a big command in a sense of a way. It does say, God said be fruitful and multiply, but that's still present today, but God doesn't call everybody to get married and have children. Sometimes just because, or other times they wouldn't do it the right way, in a sense of a way. So that's sort of like a Christian thing. That's not a natural
But we are
thing.
talking specifically about families, or at least that's what my impression was when we're talking about women having families and having children. Maybe I've lost sight of the conversation, though. Totally possible.
Yeah, I think I might be a little lost.
So what Theron is, the difference between what these two are arguing, I think, okay, if I can try to understand Nick's point of view, is Nick says that there is a certain order to the natural world, that this order is something that can be factually and scientifically observed, and that we should do our best to preserve that order in society. That's essentially Nick's argument, right? Is that a fair summary of your point?
It is natural, societal, and cosmic, the order I'm talking about. So you say that it's philosophical and it's also biological. It's all part of a coherent system.
But that's just bullshit because the natural order can change.
Well, not everything though. So there's gotta be some type of a
So the problem is that Nick is taking his.
I mean,
and we are constantly adapting.
Yes, but not everything.
So in a million years' time, what is the natural order then? Or the cosmic order then is completely different.
Well, yeah, maybe, but at the end of the day, a star is a star. There has to be some kind of objective natural order of things for things to strive and have variations of. The only reason you have variations of dogs is because there was one dog that did not try to turn into a cat in a sense of a way. Talk about the animal kingdom here. You see what I'm trying to say? There had to be a beginning. Especially when it comes to creation. That's why God is the uncaused cause, and that's why he can be the uncaused cause, because there had to be a beginning without another beginning with that beginning. Pretty much there had to be a creator that wasn't created to create everything when it comes to religion. And just in general, in my Christian beliefs.
This idea that it's this platonic ideal and eternally stable thing is
well, some things are eternally stable. Something like a star is a star. A star is going to blow up. A star is going to be, I won't say reborn, but
are not in flux biologically. Maybe in a million years, we'll have to ask our future selves a million years if the biology has changed. But as it stands, men and women still have different brain chemistry. As it stands, men and women still have different biology and biology.
Of course they do, and I agree with you.
Yeah. Men have different biological traits than women, and vice versa. It could be good or bad or mental. It just depends.
Advantage only insofar as it extends to the marketplace. He doesn't believe in comparative advantage when it comes to the fact that women are more suited to rearing and raising children, and men more suited to hunting.
Yeah, that is.
I totally believe that.
True, you know.
I
but
think,
doesn't mean that men
I think
can't
that if we had a 100%
children.
equal society where there was no pressure on any sides whatsoever, I think that you would see women gravitate towards some jobs more than men. I totally 100% believe that.
No, they would gravitate towards the home. That would be the job.
No,
okay, I'm sorry. Well,
no,
in your world, no women
some,
ever
but
wants
no. Exactly. Somehow, in of course, in Nick Fuentes' world, some or all women want to stay in the home and just cook and make a sandwich for their husbands. Sure, Nick, that's how that would work, even though it wouldn't. Anyways,
Ever wants to work any job ever, okay? But
No,
even in the
the
marketplace, if women could still work in the world where they're allowed to choose jobs, that women would probably gravitate towards some things more than others. The problem is that what Nick is trying to do is Nick is taking his observation of the natural order and he's trying to extrapolate a system of morals from that. But in society, we generally don't do this. If we have a person who is like, say we have somebody that's disabled, right? Somebody in a wheelchair. We don't typically say, well, naturally speaking, this is a person that needs to die. We shouldn't be providing medical resources for them. We shouldn't be providing food for them because naturally speaking, somebody that can't walk.
We also wouldn't be saying that that person is going against the natural
Exactly.
order,
We wouldn't
right?
say that this person.
We also, to be fair, wouldn't say that that person is completely normal. It's very clear that they have a disability. And if I can bring this back to, the whole debate
in a good way,
women and having children, it is totally fine if an individual woman doesn't want to have children and wants to focus on a career or whatever. She just doesn't want children for whatever reason.
I guess
that
true,
doesn't.
but there are others that are the opposite.
I guess my point
and
is that I
Nick
feel
is
like
not accepting
like
that.
variation and the acknowledgement of human variation is slowly getting lost in this natural order conversation, because you have to to acknowledge that variation, natural variation, and biodiversity is part of the conversation.
The difference is
diversity, of course, but you talk about men and women, and you talk about Aristotle's 4 clauses. Let's talk about Aristotle's 4 clauses. The last of Aristotle's 4 clauses is the final clause, which means that all things that are created, all things that exist, have a final end. They are directed towards a particular end, and human beings are directed.
Everything when it comes to my Christian views and beliefs, but
towards a particular end. Why do we have reproductive appendages? Hint, it's in the name. It's not for recreation. It's not so you could do degenerate, cosmopolitan magazine sex positions. And so that you can continue the species. And so that you can, after you get married, have lots of children, and then they take care of you.
Marriage? Do you think monogamy is part of the natural order? Monogamy is part of the natural order?
Of course.
Why are men sexually attracted? Why are men sexually attracted to other women then after they're married?
Yeah, Nick, what's all that about? Well, Christian belief, maybe it's sin, but sometimes, I don't want to get into that. I really don't want to get into that.
What do you mean? That's a perfectly natural biological function.
Well, here, I mean, if
in
it was
some cases, but other cases,
no,
because
multiple orifices for multiple partners, but that's just not.
But some evolution. Wait, no, hold on. I'm curious because biologically speaking, a man and a woman can be married, and that man can still feel intense sexual attraction for other people. So why would that be unnatural to you?
True, but that's not really a natural trait. It's more of a choice. Being honest, it's not really a natural trait because there's a lot of Christian and this other people testimony or witness saying that no, I have one wife and I'm glad I have that. I don't love when it comes to my marriage relationship with anybody else because I love her and her only in that way. So that wouldn't be a natural trait. That would be more of a, I guess, natural choice. Maybe a compromise. I don't. It's more of a choice than like a natural
polyamorous
thing.
No, because
I mean, Nick might say something else, most likely, but I might not, most likely not agree with what he would say.
Again, it's a difference between men having certain sexual chemistry, and the reason for that is because there are, women are the selectors in terms of who carries on the genes. Women.
You're not answering my question.
I don't think Nick is making an entirely natural argument.
He absolutely was.
In the process of
he's making it now. He's telling you he's making it now.
Look, but the thing,
ladies, men, everyone. Let's. I need to wrap this stream up soon. As fun as this has been, I found this absolutely entertaining for my Sunday night. But I will take some final statements, some final.
All right, their final word, final thoughts.
We can look at the data all we want. You know it, I know it, we all know it. The natural order must prevail, and I will bludgeon women back into the home for speaking.
Oh my gosh, this is authoritarianism. This is Roman Catholic religious anti-Semitic racist. He most likely has AOGD. That's where it starts. authoritarianism, Nazism. And again, I really think that maybe Satan is really working, really using Nick. I pray that Nick will be broken by Satan's power and he will become a Christian, and all these people will become Christians. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. Especially Nick. I mean, if God can save Paul, he can save Nick. I mean, if he can save anybody,
Bible, if I
he can
have
save
to,
Nick.
and I will, rhetorically. And so I'll leave it at that. I'm a crusader for women and blacks and Jewish
No, you're
people.
not. You're a destroyer. You're to stop, you anti-Semitic, racist, AOGD. That's where it starts. Like authoritarian Nazi, you like neo-Nazi. No, just screw you. Just lie. Just stop, Nick. It's time to stop.
I want them to succeed and be happy, and that's my fight. I'm a social justice warrior.
No, you're not. You're authoritarian. Wow, okay. You're an authoritarian, Roman Catholic,
anyone else like
right-wing, alt-right-wing, malicious.
Kind of like what I was
not malicious,
trying to say to Darren is that whenever I talk about marriage, family, and things like that, very often people get the sense that you're condemning the morality of people who choose to go against you. But what I would like to see is a culture where, for university, for example, I think we all kind of generally agree that university is a good choice to make, but that doesn't mean someone who chooses not to go to university is a bad or immoral person. That's what I would like to see regarding marriage and the family, that we all recognize it.
And I encourage you guys to watch this whole debate for yourselves, like with other videos that I do, and other videos that I let you guys listen to on my podcast. I encourage you guys to look it for yourself, and if you want to make videos for yourself, then okay. If not, then because that's
recognize it as
because
universal.
I can't do this all. I can't record it all.
Their personal circumstances don't point toward that way, and I think there is something to be said about judge not lest you be judged.
I can't let you guys listen to every single second because way too long.
Until Christ himself sits at the right hand of the Father.
Do not quote scripture, you anti-scriptural person.
No, I will judge them. I will judge them until Christ himself sits at the right hand of the Father and judges them.
He's already sitting in the right hand of the Father, my friend. Not my friend. Hopefully my friend and never my enemy. I do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but principalities and powers and rulers of darkness. And Nick, you need to be free. You need to be free. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. That's legit, I'm not joking, that's legit. For everybody, in Jesus' name I pray, amen. Nick, never quote scripture again unless if you're a true Christian. Thank you. Jesus is already seated at the right hand of the Father. You're even getting that wrong. Which is not surprising.
Don't hold your breath for that one.
True, but it's true. I mean, it's a moral good too, and I don't judge people if they're in a personal circumstance where they can't, where they have to work. But I just think societally, it's just better for everybody. I don't know why everybody wants to live in rebellion against what they know is natural. That's why people
It's not natural. That's the point, Nick. You're stupid. But anyways,
so defensive because they know they're living in rebellion. Yeah.
The sweater is lovely, but gotta stop bugging the cam. Anything from Steven, no bullshit or Theron, any burning in your gut that you gotta get out?
I'm just kind of curious. I just have one comment, or actually just one question. Or Theron can go first if you wanted to, or Roaming.
Oh, and I just noticed this. How can Nick Fuentes worship Jesus and or Mary and or both if both Mary and Jesus were Jewish? They were Jewish, Nick. You understand that they were Jewish, so I don't know how you can worship Jesus and or Mary if they were Jewish. You're anti-Semitic. That's what? How does that work?
No, go ahead, go Sherbert.
I was just curious, Lauren. I'm curious for you because it's always hard to pin down your beliefs because you like to dance the line so much. Do you think that trans people are unnatural degenerates? Yeah, is that a yes or no? I'm curious.
Trans people are unnatural degenerates.
Are trans people unnatural degenerates?
I wouldn't say degenerate.
That's all I needed. That's all I wanted to know. That's all I wanted to know.
No, I don't believe in the idea that you can change your gender. No.
Okay. That's all I wanted.
No.
Well, I'll go ahead and chime in there on that awkward moment. First of all, I love the fact that Brightside Bob or Medicare's picture has been up for like the last half hour on the stream. That's pretty awesome. Those three guys are really rocking out.
Nope.
Coming on. MAGA 2020.
Gay or straight, I am trying not to get demonetized here.
Okay, all right. Well, this was the worst, guys. Thank you so much. This started out so civil. It had so much promise. Then
I haven't but for real, I just don't let language just come anyway on my channel. Like I have a responsibility here. I can't just let any language be there in my channel.
Which one of you ladies are? Which one of
biological imperatives?
This is getting real personal. This stream.
Real personal after grilling.
Example of the fact that we all have some natural variation in us, and that it's not like this platonic ideal of I guess I'm just a living example of the fact that we all have some natural variation in us, and that there's not like this platonic ideal of what people should be in every point in time until the end of time. That someone can have this variation here, but still satisfy all the other criteria of the natural order. I can't wait to be a mother, and I think I'll be a great mother. And fuck you, Nick.
Darn.
Can I just a quick comment? I appreciate the conversation. I really do. I love you. Even Nick,
I can't just let
except for
any
Mr. Medica, I hate
language
you.
be in my channel.
Lauren,
Sometimes, but
Lauren,
no.
Nick, and roaming even maybe. Yeah, I appreciate the conversation. I do enjoy talking to you guys.
I also want to apologize. I also want to apologize to Rowan Millennial for going so hard and heated up with you, because I actually really like you and I think you're really cool. Even if I'm like frustrated about a few things, and I'm sorry about that.
No worries. It's spicy conversation. Anytime you guys want to talk again, I would be down. Thanks for having us, Lord.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. Thank you for
having
me.
Buddy.
Thank you. Thank you for the wonderful awkward video on my channel. This is wow. It was entertaining. You came on this adventure with us.
I guess it was an
another shit show of a
adventure.
live stream. Be sure to check out Contrapoints, Thier, Mr. Medicaker, No Bullshit, Destiny, Roaming Millennial, and Nick Fuentes on their own channels. They all had their own unique thing to contribute to this that made it entertaining. As for the rest of you, I hope you all have a wonderful Saturday night. I'm probably never going to
Oh, sorry.
do this again, so savor this while you can.
But you know, don't dox any of these people, and I guess go check out their videos. Not a shout out or anything like that, or promoting anything, but just look at their channels. Even Nick's, if you can, even Nick Fuentes', even Destiny's, but no, for real, just get different perspective, people, and just think for yourself.
Cheers, everyone. Good night.
And I think that is it. I'll check to see if there's a little bit more, but if I'm correct, that is it. Alright, that's it. The other stuff, if I'm correct, is Destiny checking out his comments and looking at his base, if I'm correct, and just other people. So, yeah, I hope you guys, I guess this is a way enjoyed or understand more about debates like these, and yeah, hopefully I'll do a debate myself one day. Not now. I'm still sort of new to YouTube. Maybe 2020, maybe like mid 2021 or like 2022, somewhere there where I'm very comfortable of where I stand on things. I mean, I am comfortable with where I stand on things now, but my mind could change and can change, but most likely will not change. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Especially when it comes to my religious beliefs, in a sense of a way. Even though Christianity isn't really part of the religious establishment, it still has some definitions of religion, like belief in a higher power and stuff like that. Wait. Okay. I was just checking something. I think I stepped on something, but it's okay. So, yeah, that was, the debates, pretty much. I really got nothing else to say, being honest. So, yeah. we're going to continue with the Bible versus Vedas discussion. Just get it over with in a sensible way after this Bible versus Vedas discussion. Finish it, get it over with, and then after that, finally finish the Mr. Bear Cleveland Street Preacher, because I guess Verusha Zira, aka VA, pretty much VA is like Servant of a God, pretty much. Pretty much, Destiny's Servant of a God is my VA, or my Verusha Zira. We usually it's pretty much like a sort of little rivalry, which I don't want, but I'm just saying we might have a rivalry, because these are pre-recorded, or these are recorded like months ago, like my first one. So let's tell you guys, these are, as of now, still like before my channel is actually like put up. I'm looking at my advisors, and I think they said like, or the person, my advisor, in a sensible way, my supervisor in a sensible way, said maybe somewhere near December 2020, so timestamp. So hopefully it'll be late this month or very early next month. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. Because I know the holidays. And hey guys, Present Me here, and I just want to do some little clarifications so you guys understand what happened, and I can explain certain things. And first, number one, again, I don't think that China is a Buddhist nation anymore. Pretty much I was looking at the history of Buddhism, and there is some form of Buddhism/atheism in China, but I wouldn't call it a Buddhist atheist nation, really. It just depends. I could be wrong then, because I don't know that much about China to an extent. I do know that their culture is, at least their ancient culture, I think their present culture as well, however you want to call it, however you want to say it, is influenced a little bit by Buddhism, because Buddhism was originally in India, then it went to China and Japan and those type of countries, I guess you can say. I think it's like Asian countries? I think I'm saying that right. I think that's the correct way to say it. Sorry. And if you want to know more about how I view Steven Anderson, that was the first episode of my podcast, so it should be in the description down below, my link to my podcast. If it's not, then you can just go to my channel. You should, I think, yeah, if you're mobile, and if I'm correct, also desktop, go to podcast, it should be there. Either that, yeah, it should be there, yeah, it should be there, because that was the new feature, so. Or either that, or just type in JTF Show Podcast and you should find it right then and there. Sorry, if you want to know a little bit more of how I view Steven Anderson. I don't think you'll be surprised about my views, but you might. Who knows? And what I meant by discussion, I meant by talking about the quote-unquote Asian question that I think her name's Lauren Chin, but in this case it was Roaming Millennial. I think Roaming Millennial is like her show, collab show. I think so, from what I remember. So if I got that wrong, sorry. If I did, then nice. But besides that, my next video will be continuing the discussion of the Bible versus the Vedas, and don't worry, you don't have to watch my previous videos on that, because those deal with different aspects or parts of the broader discussion of the Bible versus the Vedas. But if you want a little bit more context of pretty much what has been going on when it comes to me reacting to VA's videos, who are reacting to Pastor Retons, yeah, if you want more of that, then, yeah, you have to look at my previous videos. I think the videos coming up, Bible versus Vedas discussion, are talking more about the broader discussion of the Bible versus Vedas discussion, at least a part or aspect of it. I think Pastor Riton returns in that one. I don't remember, so don't quote me on that. And but if you're not interested, find someone who is. Please, find somebody who is interested in that discussion of Bible versus Vedas. Because if you're here for politics, I'm gonna take a little bit of a break. I'm gonna do more of religion and theology, and then we're gonna come back to politics. So, just to tell you guys that. My subscribers and returning viewers, or maybe my new, soon-to-be regular viewers, and maybe even new subscribers, if it was that good. I think it is. And, of course, I do not think that all Roman Catholics are bad, just like every other, respectfully, religion. That I don't think all Buddhists are bad people, but you might have some bad Buddhists, but not all are that way, and most of them do not represent Buddhism, if there's such thing as a bad Buddhist, I guess. I don't know how that would be, I don't know. So, I do talk negatively of Roman Catholicism and the Roman Catholic Church sometimes, but just to tell you, if you are a Roman Catholic, respectfully, I respect you as a human being, as a person, respectfully, who is not in Christ, but who has a tradition that I may or may not disagree with, and has certain grievances. Of course, most famous is, popes and, certain, I guess I'll just say it, sexual assault when it comes to popes and, children, but that's not the whole Roman Catholic Church. But they have tried to, cover those things up, so it's hard, but, if I talk to a Roman Catholic, I wouldn't be like, explain this. No, I wouldn't. I would say, explain how purgatory exists in the Bible and how you can worship Mary. That I would talk about. And if it came to popes sexually assaulting children, then I will talk about that, but most likely not. No, I'm just not going to. I gotta breathe. I gotta rest. Number 7. 7 was God's rest, and you can have yours in Jesus Christ if you're not saved. That prayer, if you want to get saved right now, that prayer is in the description but down below. Same thing for the prayers of those who might want to come back to Christ, or if you're already a Christian but you want the baptism of the Holy Spirit with the evidence of speaking with tongues. Those prayers are in the description down below. And if you are wrestling with it, just rest. Just surrender. Alright, trust me. I had to do the same thing in certain cases. I was still a Christian, but, I had to rest. I had to stop wrestling. I had to surrender. So if that is you, those prayers are in the description below. If you are wrestling with it, just trust me, just surrender. Respectfully, just, you know what? Good. Don't just try it out. Actually commit to it. Actually want to have a relationship with God. And but if you're not wrestling with it, it's fine. And if you forget, you were busy, they're in all of my videos. So don't worry. If you missed it, don't worry, you can come back to this video, or come back to the next one, or the one before that, or the one before that, etc., etc., etc.